What if filmmaking wasn't about fixing the world, but figuring it out? Samona Olanipekun is a director who blends cinema and documentary to explore the themes of identity, memory, and the experience of being an outsider. His work is poetic, political, and deeply personal. In this episode, Simona talks about using film as therapy, why he sees the stories as emotional tapestries, and how the very fact that he feels like an outsider became his greatest creative tool. Let's welcome Samona Olanipekun to Setnotes.
And action!
No, thank you for joining us. It's
Pleasure.
an absolute pleasure, and it's been a lot of fun looking at your work.
Really glad. Yeah, thanks for having me. Honestly, yeah.
So, what I'd like to start with, if it's okay with you, is a little bit about your background.
Yeah.
Because I think this it plays into your sort of voice as a director quite a lot. So, you're from your parents are from Western Africa, Nigeria, right?
Yes, Nigeria. Yeah.
Yoruba.
Both
tribe,
Yoruba. Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
And you were born in Coventry.
Yeah, I was born and raised in Coventry. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's a huge. I moved to London probably about 15 years ago. Yeah. My whole school and formative years were in Coventry. And then I moved to London as soon as I was 18.
Was that always the plan to move to London?
I wouldn't say it was always the plan. I think my older brother moved here about a year before me. And I think Coventry, a lot of fond memories growing up there. But if you're not an engineer, there's maybe not loads of areas you can excel in. Right. And my dad was an engineer, but for me, it wasn't really that interesting. Yeah. And London represented, I guess, a lot of possibility.
Well, did you always kind of sense that you're going to be like in the arts, doing something in the arts and doing something creative? Was that always a sense for you?
I always really enjoyed arts, but I don't think I had an idea of quite what a job in the arts looked like. My family I didn't come from a home where my parents were, they always prioritized the academic route, which, I'm grateful for, but I don't think...
Did you go to university or did you just...
I studied photography, yes.
Right. And what do your parents think about that when you...
I'm the youngest of three boys, and so I think by the time it got to me,
they were a little bit more lenient
and I was still going to university.
So was it kind of like the lawyer doctor thing for your older brothers then, do you think? Or was it the kind of higher expectation academically?
Nigerian culture is always that. So yes, there's always going to be an element of that. But my parents were very supportive and very open, They know education was education served them very well. They both went to uni. My dad did a master's, so that's what they knew. But yes, they pushed us in that direction, but they also weren't too rigid with it. It wasn't like we were going to get. They were a bit more open.
So the younger, is it 3 boys then?
Yeah, 3 boys. I'm the youngest sibling.
Okay. And the other 2 boys, what do they do now?
So my middle brother, who moved to London with me, he spent many years working in advertising. And now he's kind of shifting a bit more to the conservation and nature space, but taking what he's learned and what worked well in advertising. So he's kind of, working in a really interesting space. And then my oldest brother, he's got a more corporate job. He just, he manages loads of people. So 2 of us creative, always had a bit of a creative spark and interest in us.
Were you influenced by your middle brother then, do you think?
Yeah, big time. Yeah. I think...
Was he guiding you in terms of what films to watch, what music to listen to?
Yeah, I think... Yes, guiding me and also just exposing me, but both brothers were exposing me to music, to
arts.
That's
the great thing about it. I have 2 older sisters and
nice.
I love the fact that when I was a kid, they were listening to watching grown-up films, listening to grown-up music, and that obviously has an impact, doesn't it?
Big time. Influenced me as well. Many rooms or many times sneaking in to steal CDs or DVDs and looking back, 100% influenced me. And, that was my first taste of independent cinema. I didn't know it was independent cinema, but I just knew my brother's got these weird DVDs that are subtitled and black and white and quite, mad.
So we're talking about Lahane, City of God.
Lahane, City of God, and thinking back, we would go broader. I remember watching, getting into the films of Michael Haneke, getting into the films of Kids. What's that director's name?
The photographer.
Yeah, my brain's gone.
With Larry Clark.
Larry Clark's films and Harmony Korine's film.
Yeah.
So I've got such fond memories of like my teenage years, and not consciously knowing, oh, okay, I'm exploring independent cinema here. It was just like, oh my God, have you seen this DVD? Oh my God, have you seen this this director's films? Oh my God, have you seen the twist in this film? So it was really organic and natural. We'd do the same with music. We'd do the same with, art, fine art. And yeah, I think me and my middle brother, I was very much influenced by him by, I guess, openness and curiosity in his friendship groups, and he
let you into his friendship groups, being
massively
younger sort of bratty brother. I'm not saying that you were brat,
it was there. You can go out if you're going to take, Sam.
Oh, really? That's what your parents said.
Yeah,
that's clever. That's smart of your parents. Yeah, good parenting, right?
Yeah, really good parenting. Yeah. And so throughout the younger years, I remember just being dragged along, and then there was always such a respect between the three of us, and it's a 6-year gap between me and my next brother.
Right.
So it was quite a big gap, but it seamlessly transitioned into me stealing his things and, just in the corner quiet listening, to actually me also then engaging, and then us becoming actually just really good friends. And then we moved to London together, and, our tastes, my middle brother, he's got impeccable taste in terms of just generally, and so
kind of like in terms of kind of style, arts, kind of
all of it, style, arts, music,
that helps a lot. That really does feed the soul, doesn't it?
100%, and not for any reason, or not for a just purely out of being interested in something.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that comes across in your films is sort of quite a mature sense of style and kind of poetry. Like the aesthetics is really solid in what you're doing.
No, thank you.
Because it's easy to do that kind of work, and for it not to have that kind of what I would call the kind of magic, and that sort of sort of. It's got an aesthetic kind of strength to it, not just content strength. So just moving on a little bit, I want to talk a bit about your Nigerian move, because your parents are from Nigeria.
Yeah.
You were born in Coventry. So do you have any childhood? Did your parents go back to Nigeria at all when you were younger? Do you have?
Yeah. So my parents moved to the UK in 1980, I believe, just before my oldest brother was born. Just after they got married. Growing up, we would go fairly regularly every couple of years. So yeah, up until maybe 16, I've got memories of family holidays and that connection, and I've still got a lot of family there.
Yeah.
Still got a lot of family.
And what about language? Was your parents in front of you? Did they speak just English, or did they speak English?
Nah, they spoke a lot of Yoruba and English, and it's really funny because obviously it's totally it's on me that I don't know the language. And Nigeria, their first language is English, so there's a weird thing where you can get away. It's not a language we needed to learn. And I think my parents always made a very conscious effort to protect, not even to protect, but also to learn and prioritize learning English and really integrating themselves when they came here. So I think that, coupled with them not being super strict, just meant that it was an optional thing to learn. And as kids, I didn't see I just didn't happen to see the value at my young age. Obviously devastated now, or regret it, but it's never too late. So
I was going to say, I think this leans into your work as well, because it might be making up for that in your work a little bit, so you're showing more interest in maybe in your heritage and your culture,
big time,
as a filmmaker. And maybe if you'd learnt all of that stuff, or been forced to learn that stuff as a child, it would have put you off it.
So true. You know what I mean? Yeah, so true.
In a way, it might be a bit of a blessing.
I like that. I like that. Yeah, for sure. So one of the things you said is, too Nigerian to be British, too British to be Nigerian. Yeah.
Do you want to talk a little bit on that?
I think, as we all do in our own ways. I think in my teens, my early 20s, you're trying to figure out who you are, or you're trying to figure out,
How old are you now?
I'm 34 now.
Right.
So I don't know when that quote was from, but I'm assuming it is in our 20s. And yeah, I think we all go through life, especially when you're in them formative years of figuring out your place, finding a place of belonging, finding out, you know, where you fit in. And in my early 20s, and especially I think because my parents moved to Coventry mainly for university. As I said, my dad went to Warwick, and Coventry is known for its engineering. But I think having not, you know, hearing, it's funny, now I live in Southeast London, but my parents very easily could have moved to Southeast London back in the 80s and really kind of prioritised maybe community over education. And that would have been in itself a very different experience, because I would have had a whole, I guess, connection to Nigeria, but through a London lens and community. Whereas I think
is there a strong Nigerian community in Southeast London?
Yes, huge. Peckham is known as, you know, it's you'd almost be as comfortable navigating Peckham as a Yoruba man as navigating Lagos, you know. Really? Yeah, wow. It's got a very historical relationship of a lot of people when they moved to the UK from Nigeria moved to Peckham just because that's what they knew. That's where they're, you know. Yeah. And I think you can find that with a lot of diasporas. There's also
quite a lot of Caribbean.
Yeah, Caribbean too, exactly, yeah. And I think every diaspora, whether it's Italian, Nigerian, you know, Colombian, Brazilian, I think there's pockets everywhere. That's the beautiful thing,
I used to live in Camberwell, and I noticed quite a lot of the churches and stuff. I'd noticed on a Sunday, I'd see them more Nigerian. And I noticed that there's a few businesses around there, and you know,
in Brixton. So I think going to Coventry just meant Coventry is still diverse, but it wasn't like there was a Nigerian community, but there wasn't a huge Nigerian community, which I guess recreated the home comforts in Coventry. So I feel like,
did that create a sense of longing, do you think, for that?
I mean, you don't know, at the time you don't really long for what you don't know, do you? And I think I was fortunate enough still to be surrounded by enough, you know, enough diverse communities who celebrated each other for our own, you know, for our differences. So it wasn't a case of it being like a bad upbringing. It just meant that I had to discover my Nigerian, I guess, heritage myself. Because as you know, in your family, it's so familiar that, you know, I think everyone needs a time where they have to be like, oh, okay, let me discover it for myself. Not just from my own eyes, not through the lens of family. And growing up, I knew when I left the Midlands to come to London, I've had loads of friends there, and it wasn't a case of me being, you know, a loner but I felt there was more. I felt there was a place for me where I would fit in more, where I could be more myself, where, you know. So I think
And you discovered that more in London, would you say?
Big time, yeah.
So there was a slight kind of outsider, 100%. Which is very true of a lot of photographers and filmmakers. I mean, a lot of us feel, you know, I, for example, I was adopted as a child, so I always had that kind of feeling of being outside the family, looking in. And so it was no surprise to me when I found myself behind a camera, just observing things.
So true. And a few people have said that to me through, again, maybe it's, you know, being a Nigerian in Coventry or being the youngest sibling. There's a lot of places in life, a lot of spaces where I was an observer. So I think it did influence a bit. But the question on identity and the fitting in, I think I think everyone goes through it in their own times, don't they? Where you're like, okay, where is my people, or where am my village, or what does that look like? You know, what qualities, what, I guess, not any qualities, but what am I looking for in a village, let's say? And I definitely found that in London. And, you know, if I was to define it, I think London is such a big place with so many different types of people that there's an inherent, and this is generally speaking, but there's a more inherent celebration when it comes to change, comes to difference. Whereas in a smaller place, from my experience, it's like outsiders can be more feared, exactly, and come across as a threat, and that just is so anti everything I stand for or everything of who I am.
You know, it's funny because Coventry. Have you ever heard the phrase "being sent to Coventry"?
Of course, I hear it a lot. Yeah.
I actually researched that today.
Oh, no way.
I didn't realise where it came from.
Yeah, so from the war.
Yeah, the Civil War. Yeah, I was thinking that's kind of interesting that you were sent, literally
100%
brought into Coventry, and
100%.
it's kind of like, and having to find your identity within that.
Exactly, and Coventry's got such a rich and interesting history. Like, I've got such fond memories, even though I left. Leaving made me appreciate it more, because it was like, oh, okay, I could step back and actually start to identify the influences it had on me. But yeah, Coventry post-war, as I keep saying, the engineering, the manufacturing there, like, it's a really interesting city. Yeah, really interesting.
Yeah. So no regrets being brought up there then, really?
Nah, no regrets at all. Yeah, no regrets at all. Very fun memories.
So I think we should, let's now talk a little bit about your journey into filmmaking. So you studied photography at university?
Yes.
Right? And was that Coventry University?
No, so that was what moved me to London. So I went to University of East London, and it was a way to just move to London. Like, I didn't really... I think it's funny because I was all good at school, like...
Academically good.
Yeah, as in I didn't have to, secondary school, sixth form, I didn't have to try that hard. I was never like, some people struggle through school. I was actually okay. It wasn't, I didn't find it too difficult. But then as soon as I got to university, I was like, classroom, I couldn't think of anything worse than a classroom. I was just ready to be in the real world, and staying in the classroom, I really, really struggled. Like, it's.
Was the course quite academic then, or was it?
No, it was nothing to do. It was quite practical. Like, the course was fine, but I think for me, when I think back, I had just such a real, like, palpable awareness that the classroom was like a artificial environment. If that even makes sense. Like, it was just so clear to me that nothing in this room mattered.
Yeah, it was like a test run rather than doing it for real, kind of thing.
And I can't be motivated by test runs whatsoever. Some people excel within academia. Some people love the structure, the clear guide and the clear, I guess, the clear goals. For me, just instantly, it was like overnight. I was just, it probably was there throughout school, but I wasn't aware that there was any other choice. As soon as I moved to London, I could see that, there's a real world with real feedback and real endless potential in terms of, what you can achieve. Classroom was just done. I was like, I can't do this.
And so you wanted to embrace the real world as what? What in your mind? What were you? What was your?
I did, even at that time. So I guess rewinding a little bit, then it was in sixth form. I studied media, and that was the first time I realised that there was a potential career in film. I think there was a few between what I shared about my older brother's DVD collection. I remember being in media A levels, and my teacher, he put on two films. One was a 21st century portrait, the Zidane documentary.
Oh yeah.
And I just remember it. He only put on like 10 minutes.
Was that the one with all the 35mm cameras just focused on Zidane
for the 90 minutes?
Yeah. That's crazy, man.
Crazy,
yeah.
And
that's isn't that where your ad came from? That someone only touches the ball for X amount of time.
You know what? Not directly, but yes, it's the same concept. I didn't even connect those two until you mentioned it just now, actually. But I just remember 10 minutes of it. My teacher put it on, and there was people in the class, some of the girls who weren't into football. This is terrible. This is so boring. And I just remember it like yesterday. I was just awestruck, as in awestruck. Just my brain, the amount of things, the amount of feelings that were going through my mind. I couldn't articulate them.
It's something because it's so familiar to all of us watching a football match, right? Yeah, it's stripping it away and then putting it into a subjective sort of first
100%.
person. Yeah, and that hadn't been done before, right?
It hadn't been done, and then add to that, me and some close friends of mine, we love football growing up. also he loves Zidane. Like Zidane as a person is such an enigmatic character. And now, obviously, at 34, I can articulate it and you know, break down why I was so awestruck. But
was he the player? Just about
yeah,
was he the player that once took a penalty, vomited, and took a penalty and scored like a second after he vomited?
Yeah, and this was in like a Champions League final.
Yeah,
like he's the same player who headbutted somebody and got sent off in a World Cup final.
Of course,
his last ever game.
That became a big thing as well. Yeah.
So there's so much about the guy in itself, let alone the technical. You know, I think it's 14 35mm cameras. I think huge. The DOP was I want to say maybe Hoyt, maybe somebody else, but we're talking like, you know,
that A class.
The caliber was outrageous. And you know, at 17, I didn't know all of these things, but 10 minutes of this thing changed my life. And, you know, I was awestruck. And at the same time, then I started to think about all the other films and La Haine. And it was interesting because at 17, I remember, like, as I said, it was yesterday, I was like, whatever this is, I need to figure it out. And that's what I need to do as a job. And that was as much detail as I knew. I didn't know. I couldn't tell you a producer to a director to a DOP. Nothing. I knew zero.
It's like the touch paper was lit, right? Yeah.
And I said to myself, whatever this is, I'm going to figure it out.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm going to do.
Right.
So that my first step was, you know, maybe let me try photography, because director of photography, I know that there's a connection somewhere. That was honestly as far as I knew. I knew nothing. And so maybe that was the thing of why I struggled so much in uni. Maybe deep down I figured out, okay, this isn't it. This isn't the direction. But in those years, I managed to, I learned how to edit. I was self-shooting a lot. This was around the time of the advent of like 5D and 7D.
Right, yeah. Perfect timing.
Timing. So at the time, I think going out into the real world and doing what, going back to your question, is I didn't fully know, but I just was, in my mind, it was getting closer to this goal. And I think there was a number of years where I probably wasn't even brave enough to say it out loud that I want to make films, because I didn't know what making films even meant or consisted of, but I knew deep down. So a few years it took me to then start saying it out loud. The next few years starting to figure out, you know, playing around with things. And yeah, in that I just knew this classroom, I'm like, the answers aren't going to be here in this classroom. But London feels such a big, open kind of infinite possibilities that somewhere out there. So maybe that's it. And again, I'd never really thought about it like this before, but yeah, I think I just knew I was chasing whatever that was when I first watched Zidane, and I was moved here. I need to figure out what that is.
That's excellent. Yes. So in a minute we're going to put Kindred on the monitor, but I was just thinking, before we get to that, from where you are now to when you shot Kindred, is there any kind of formative work that we should be looking at? Because we can always insert it later in the cut. Is there anything you want to mention
before Kindred or after?
Yeah, before. I'm just getting us from here, from where you are at the moment, going out into the real world, to shooting Kindred.
You know what? I'm going to say no, just because, and not in a sense of...
Was Kindred from Steve McQueen's?
No, Kindred was
before.
Yeah, this was much before. Steve McQueen,
yeah.
And working with him was probably from around...
That was I&I, wasn't it?
I&I and Greenpeace.
And Greenpeace,
yeah, exactly.
Okay, so for now we can... Yeah, good. Okay, so Kindred... It makes sense to have a look at that then.
Yeah. Kindred for me was the first time, like we all do, when we first pick up a camera. There was a lot of shorts and stuff that I made which will never see the light of the day, or I've literally finished, realised, you know, the limits to my experience or things that had gone wrong, and then just moved on to the next. So there's multiple projects which...
And this is you being part producer, part self-shooter.
Yeah.
Just going out there with your 5D and...
5D, 7D.
Did you own your own camera at the time?
I've owned numerous cameras over the time, but I remember the first time there was like a collective 7D. I don't even know. Genuinely, it's funny. I don't actually know who owned it. There was a group of us, and it just was like... You know,
were they like a film family then?
Film, yeah, 100%, and all of them are still directing now, which is incredible and amazing.
And you still keep in touch with them?
Yeah, I did an interview with one, and she literally the 7D. I don't know if it was mine, if it was hers.
And
but
how did you meet your film family? Because I think that
it's all different, and they were all just the people around me at the time. So I think back to
through your older brother.
Some through my older brother, some through parties, some through. I worked retail for many years, and there was one particular job, one of the last few retail jobs that I did, and somehow it was for Nike, but the space, it was quite a unique retail job, but it's really fascinating because 5-6 of us there, and we were all into film, weirdly enough, and so it's really funny and great to see what we all went on to achieve. But you know, we were sat on the shop floor just chatting rubbish about what we're working on, what we want to work on, what we've watched. So yeah, my film family just came from everywhere.
Yeah. I used to work in Paul Smith years ago.
Nice. Yeah.
And I had my own. I used to hang out with a guy called Tony Oakenbauer. Do you know Tony?
I know his name.
He used to DJ on Ellen's show.
Yeah,
and he became an actor and stuff in America.
Nice. Yeah, I don't know why I know his name, but yeah, I know his name.
He's Nigerian as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. We're all kind of into film, and knowing that we want to do something creative, but just like similar kind of thing.
Exactly.
And we both worked in fashion at the time, and Paul Smith had these window displays that I kind of got into, and that's my first. But yeah, it's wonderful when the stars align and you 100%. Sort of find that there's a community around you that has similar kind of sensibility.
And that's it. That's why I moved to London, and I think, you know, there's such a big connection between music and fashion and film and, you know, arts and culture, that you follow one thing and it's no surprise when it leads you to the next, or when everyone in the room is also into something else as well as that, you know. So there's patterns everywhere, isn't there? And I was very fortunate that, and at the time you don't know it, you know, you're looking up, you're always thinking, oh man, I can't wait to be professional, or can't wait to be where these people are. But yeah, it's amazing to actually look around at 19, blink, 15 years goes by, and the same people, loads have come and loads have gone, but actually there's about 5-6 people who I met at 19 who I'm still very close friends with.
Do you ever miss the early time of exploration, the kind of curiosity of discovering something for the first time, and that kind of innocence? And because you know that people say that you can make different films at different stages of your career,
100%.
and the films you made when you're early on, you can't remake them later.
No chance.
Because that innocence is gone, right?
Yeah. And, do I miss it? I don't think so. I don't miss it in the sense of I'm not too nostalgic or sentimental, but I've got such fond memories of it. You know, all the ideas that I would have at early 20s, the exact same ideas that I'd have now. I just didn't have the experience or know how to execute them how I would want to execute them.
Right.
So yeah, I wouldn't say miss is a strong word, but I've got very fond memories of all my, you know, anytime I speak to younger filmmakers, I'm like, enjoy this. You know, when they're telling me what they're up to, I get, not FOMO, but I'm like, that's when I miss it.
Yeah.
I'm like, I miss having the energy.
Yeah, the energy.
And you just do stuff, you know, and now I still try. I try and maintain that energy, you know, and bring it into this context of what I now know. So I don't miss it, but I do see all the value in it, and I'm constantly challenging myself to go back there. But not through missing it, but through the purity, the naivety is so. It's amazing.
It's like Picasso, isn't it? Sort of, you draw like a child or something. You learn,
exactly.
You spend your life to learn to draw like a child.
Exactly. That's it.
Joshua, let's go back to the beginning of this, because I'm going to set this up now. So This is Kindred 2018, so I've got it here, a poetic short on migration and cultural identity commissioned by Barbican. It's the Art of Change season, right?
Yes.
And it won Best Experimental Short at
Aesthetica.
Yeah,
Aesthetica film. No, I got you.
And then someone said, I think this might have been you, said the innocence and loss in this love letter to the immigrant experience. So we touched on this earlier on in our conversation. Your parents are from West Africa, Yoruba tribe in Nigeria, and they'd moved in the 80s to London, and you were brought up in Coventry and moved to London, and a lot of your filmmaking is exploring themes of identity and a sense of kind of kind of loss and
belonging.
Longing,
Almost.
yeah, I'll say longing, yeah. Definitely. So do you want to, firstly, what I'd like to talk about is the different characters in this, because there's a bunch of the characters. How did you formulate those characters, and how do they relate to each other?
I think it would be best to talk about where the idea initially came from, because specific characters, I think I'll get there, but it's really interesting looking back at it, and 2018 doesn't feel that long ago, but getting my head into where I was at when I created this, it's an interesting question. And so can I go just to...
so let me ask
okay,
the better
sure,
question.
okay, sorry,
no, it's all good. So where did the idea initially come from then?
So the idea for me was a long time coming, and I remember so there's a few contexts that kind of overlap. Professionally, I had got to a point in my career where I was producing a lot. So there's a number of years that
were you producing your own work, or were you producing for other people?
For other people. Right. So connecting to the same tribe, and I can mention names, right? There's no point in not. So
absolutely. I mean, they're probably like that, right?
Amazing, yeah. A very, very close friend of mine, Molly Mills, and she's a director now, and she's always been a director. Sorry, and she was one of those people who I met.
Was Molly Mills a DOP who shot the girls?
No.
That's Molly.
You're thinking Molly Manning Walker.
Oh, Molly Manning Walker, yeah.
Molly Mills, she's a director. She's always been a director. She's with Some Such. Incredible, really, really talented director. And she's one of the first few people I met moving to London. And so the actual journey, we will come back to Kindred, but essentially we, at 19, me and my friends just running around with cameras, shooting our own ideas, but also promising people in our network, oh yeah, I can make a film for that. It was content before content was a thing, especially branded content. And there was this really beautiful period of time where brands only knew big scale production. There was no such thing as user generated content, let alone small nimble videographer. I wasn't really I feel like videographer was something that came in the last 10 to 15 years. And so these jobs came about, or my beginning of my career was very much in that space. So me and Molly, we would run around. We've got so many stories of, and some other friends, Akwasi Prodco, who's another director as well, who... Same, we met at in this period, and the camera would just flow around. We'd promise people, over promise, under deliver, rinse and repeat. Like it was, and again, because we were so cheap, because agencies and brands would only know TV level production. So there was a huge gulf where we were like, yeah, we can do that. You've got this event, yeah, we'll capture that. Or, you've got this new product or this new initiative.
I mean, you really touched on the trend, the shift in culture between filmmaking. In my world was television, TVC world. There's an apprenticeship. You spent years in the camera department. You work your way up, and then the new young punk generation, which is your guys. It's like couldn't quite play the instruments, but had the swagger. Do you know what I mean?
100%.
It's that kind of vibe, yeah. And you guys literally took over, and I could see it then. Because I think, okay, you don't know what you're doing now, but you keep winning the work. Within a year, you'll know what you're doing.
You'll figure it out, and it's so nice because I think going through that, and it's funny, we'll come all the way back to Kindred because this is the professional context. What led me to this, but yeah, there was a really nice thing of exactly as you just said. We were punk. Made it up as we go along. We were, there was no rules for us, and within that, it quite quickly became apparent that even as we were learning, it meant I could have a skill set which meant, okay, cool, I can deliver for whatever your cost is, which is a bit of a tricky one, isn't it? Because it's like, I know I can make a very good film for £500. I know I can also make a film for, stupid amount of digits, and that was the skill, because I wasn't attached to anything. I didn't need a big crew, nor did I, you could
scale your idea up or down depending on how many zeros they give you,
the situation, and all the way up and all the way down, and it was nice when we all realized, okay, that is the skill, because we're so nimble and flexible, because you know, you'd be speaking to clients, and you knew they knew what they wanted, and the people, their usual guys in this window, were just like, this is what it's going to cost you. Whereas we were like a fraction, a tenth of what they're charging. We were like, oh my gosh, this is the most I've ever earned. Yeah, we'll do that for you. The client don't care. Really, you know, me and you are the technical ones.
Yeah, we
know
can see the difference. A lot of clients can't see the difference. Yeah,
and especially in that whole gulf of we're just trying to learn, and just being paid to pick up a camera was huge for us.
And there's also something about a more relevant look these days. It's a more amateur look as well. Do you know what I mean? It's like the sort of perfect craft is kind of feels sometimes a bit dated, right?
100%.
So there's that.
And you know, we in our generation, it was nice because we had friends who were skaters, we had friends who were in fashion, we had friends who were DJing or in a band. So there was a lot of aesthetics which were natural to different mediums and formats and directions. And we were in the middle of that, being young, out all the time, you know, rubbing shoulders with loads of people who we just had mutual cultural interests with. And then we would just happen to be in the middle, being like, oh, that's a really beautiful story, or oh, that needs to be captured, or oh, that's such a good soundtrack, or oh, skater aesthetic would be really good in this, you know, take this and add this, you know. So the naivety actually meant we had such a freedom of expression, and we could just dip in and dip out. And, you know, we knew we were punk at heart. We knew there was a outsider element or an outsider feeling that drove us. And so again, do I miss it? Now you're making me miss it because I'm talking about it. But it's like, it was such a beautiful time where the stars aligned for us. But you know what, and it touched upon what we were talking about again before the cameras turned on. I think if you're present, there's no more beautiful place than the present at all.
Yeah.
And so I don't think kids now have it better or worse. I know there's going to be more challenges I can identify, oh man, this ain't the same anymore. This ain't the same. But again, I just embraced the situ, because I'm sure if we were having this conversation now, back then, it would be like, we could list all the reasons why it's hard. We could list all the reasons why it's challenging. We could list all the reasons why things are changing. And I think that's just inherent in what we do. Technology and art is always changing, whereas professionally, that was a very good time for us because we fully lent into this gold rush, and I'll call it a gold rush, of the early days of content. So that was early when we came up. And so essentially me and Molly, we were making films. The first time I ever got paid to pick up a camera, it was like £250. And I was so excited. Me and my friends, I think I split it with a friend. We were that, you know, and that was to do everything. The hourly would be less than 50p an hour of how much we put in. But at the time we were so excited. And so first one was 250, then someone offered us 500, then someone gave us £1,000, £2,000, 15. And we just got to a point where we needed a spreadsheet. So I was like, oh, you know, I could do that. So that's
when the producer cap went on.
Apparently that's what it's called. I was like, okay, cool. Literally, I was like, I could send you a spreadsheet, sure, and do a bit of maths.
You're going to regret saying that, right?
I mean, again, I enjoyed that again, like the producing days. So the jobs just grew very organically. I ended up producing badly at first, got a little bit better. To a point.
But do you always had the director instinct inside you, do you think?
You know what? And I think it's a good question. More than director instinct, I just had a filmmaker instinct. I just wanted to tell stories. I just wanted to make films. And, you know, the lot of people when we were around, we all were just all hands on deck. And I'm so glad I did that. So in this window, I was also shooting my own stuff, but I wasn't in a rush. Directing was intimidating and quiet, and I was like, let me find where the stories I want to tell, and let my skin get thick enough to really back them and believe them.
That's very wise. Yeah.
And
because it's so easy to kind of try and jump into early,
see it as a race,
get burnt and then not want to come back. Yeah.
And I can't recall how and why, but in my 20s I wasn't in a rush. You know, I was okay taking my time, and in that window, I'd done everything. I'd picked up cameras, you know, I'd not just want loads. I'd shot South shop, weddings, for everything. I'd edited anything and everything. I'd, color graded anything and everything. So in that window, I had a very holistic, as intermediate as it was, a very holistic idea of the filmmaking process. So naturally, your 20s, I ended up falling into producing. Me and the names, Molly and other friends, we traveled the world. Like had the best time. But
and what was this through a production company at the time, or was it
we were just floated around?
And you were still kind of a videography group then?
We all went in our own directions. With Molly, it's funny because
were you producing for Molly at the time?
Yes, I did a lot in that window. I was still doing my own things, but Molly got a lot of commercial success quite early. And I just worked with her because we were close. Yeah. And, being punk in that big industry.
Was she the first director of your group to get signed then?
I think so. Yeah, I would say so.
Was it Some Such straight away, or was it somewhere else?
No, she's been around. I think I don't know if it's the first one. I want to say her first was maybe RSA. Then she went to Radical. That was when my kind of producer career peaked, and around the same time as this. But yeah, she was the first one who got signed. We were on this cusp of, not only just doing films, but people were coming to us because of our that attitude, that spirit of that punk spirit, and that freedom in our expression, and that can-do attitude of we can. So we traveled the world. The amount of places and stories we went. Way underqualified, but I don't actually think I was underqualified, because we delivered what it was. Everything.
And this is kind of content, high-end content.
High-end content trickling into TVCs. High-end content, I would say. Yeah. And so I'd been producing for a number of years, and I think I knew my heart. I'm an all or nothing person, and my heart wasn't in it. And when I say it, whether that was the producing, whether that was the commercials, or a bit of both, I think when I'm into something, I can do it all day, every day. As soon as my interest and engagement and my curiosity starts to wane, it becomes laboured. I'll start making mistakes. I'm not happy. And so there was a window where that was starting to kick in. And that was the professional context. The personal context, I'm in London, I'm still pursuing filmmaking. And mid 20-teens, so I can't recall exactly when, but let's say probably it was a few years coming when on the news it was just starting to trickle in that there was boats, dinghies turning up on our shores. And I really it was plaguing me. It was really sitting with me, just being the language of it. And again, migrant crisis, the context now versus the context 10 plus years ago is the difference. So 10 plus years ago, the first few that were coming up, I remember the language was just so unbelievably dehumanizing, and it was dystopian. I'm a big sci-fi fan, which I'm sure we'll get into, but I remember it was one of the first headlines that just really was just man, this is making, I don't know how I feel about this. And so for years, it was a good 2-3 probably plus years, I was and for no reason at the time, I was just trying to figure it out, which is an important driving factor. I was trying to figure out how in the world are we here now, in terms of when people are risking their all to get to the shore of, whatever, Kent Beach. And there's no guarantee when they get there they could get sent back, but in my head I was like, how are they risking everything for that? And this is how we're talking about it, one. And then two, as a Nigerian, I started to think, I've made this exact same journey but through my parents. So the exact place where my feet are stood here, people are willing to risk it all. And I saw a few documentaries. I was reading loads of books, reading loads of news, and watching, various. And I remember going to one screening of a documentary can't recall the name because this was a long time ago now. And this guy followed a few different migrants and followed their entire journeys. And in this there was one particular story within his documentary that started in northern Nigeria, went all the way through west to central to North Africa. This journey of the guy who he was following, the migrant, he literally got sold into slavery in Libya for like a year. And obviously, I don't know if you remember, but that was in the news at one point. There was a lot of different things going on.
What period was this?
This would have been 20 teens for sure.
Right.
Again, if you think he made the doc, so when he made it was probably around 2010,
right,
very roughly. But all these things I was spotting in the news. So the migrant.
Were you having strong emotional reactions to this? Was it like a kind of triggering in the
triggering?
Sense of,
yeah, maybe I'd use triggering in the word now, but not in a sense at the time, because triggering has got such a connotation of it. We're being like, oh, I'm triggered. Yeah, it wasn't necessarily that, but I was feeling something. Triggered would be the technical word for it, and I was trying to figure it out. My brain couldn't process it, and this is what, again, it's a really nice story because there's me trying to figure this out. Also seeing that fact that I'm questioning my place, being like the privileges that I'm afforded right now. This is the lengths people are willing to go to, and me and these people came from the exact same starting position. And there was this one doc where the guy, he followed him, and literally he was slow. His journey went for years. He was sold into slavery, then managed to escape or get free, continue the journey on, then come across crazy waters in, the Mediterranean, then through Europe, then across the Channel, or he got turned back somewhere. I don't think this guy specifically, the Nigerian guy, made it across the Channel, but essentially locked up multiple times. Finally free, got sent back to his origin country, and the director who I saw at the Q&A asked him, what's his plan now? This is like 4 years of your life. You've come away with your life by the skin of your teeth. What's your plan now? He's going to save up and do it again. And that just rocked me, because I was it really put into context the privileges and the risks that people are willing to take.
I mean, in some ways, it's like the hero's journey, isn't it? It's
huge, and that really was. I was struggling to know what to do or how to make sense of this. So then this idea started to creep as this journey was going, and I, knowing that what I know now, it was obvious. But at the time, there was the more I'd read about the migrant crisis, the more complex it was. It was there was no simple. It wasn't these are the people to blame. Yeah. This is the solution.
Yeah, that's the problem with anything. Is when you look into it, like climate change. When you look into it, it becomes more and more complex. Doesn't
it? And which again, it's nice because this will connect to when we get to talking about Greenpeace. So I realised that it's complex as I was going along the way. The more I knew, the more complex it got, and this image started to build in my head, which was made of images and sounds, and it's experimental in its film. And this is the thing, I think in my mind it was like I didn't go on the journey thinking, I think there's a film here, let me dig. It was just like, no, this is something very deep that I need to make sense of, that will inform why in the world I'm here, and I mean on this planet, So it was it was making me question myself, and it was making me ask myself really big questions. Then this idea came, and I had there was something in my mind, and I just started penning it down, writing it down, bits and bobs here and there. And then knowing how much I knew, or learning about the industry along the way, I started to think, I reckon there could be some sort of bursary here, because I could see this what I'm seeing in my mind, I could see in a gallery space, because, my original thing was I'd love to do a multi-screen experience or, video installation. I kept my eyes open, looking, and then I stumbled across this bursary, and one of the categories that you could enter it for with globalization. I was like, bang, perfect. Globalization, migration is the same thing. So this idea that I'd already loosely started writing, I was like, cool. I packaged it in a way which could be sent off with a bursary. Came back and I got there a few months later. I got it. I was like, wow, okay, I've got to actually make it now. They sent me, they sent me a schedule, and it was the program, The Art of Change. It was like 12 films, I believe, and mine was like 9th September. So I had not an extra, but I kind of had like 9 months almost. Probably not 9, maybe I had about 6 months. And I kind of just said to myself, I'd been working in, you know, commercials. This was the perfect time where what my vision, broadly speaking, my experience was catching up. So I could start to say, oh, you know what, I can deliver a film now in terms of I understand the whole process. And so I spent 6 months being like, you know what, Sam, the bursary was only £1,500, which was next to nothing, you know, as we know. But I was like, you know what? I think I'd already spoke to 1 or 2 people who they were like, yeah, I'm involved, whatever you need. And that excitement, I was like, oh, okay. Wow, okay, sweet. Because if you were to ask me, how did I convince people? I barely could tell you. I could dig out the docs, but I'm like, in my mind, I barely know. But everyone responded like, as soon as whatever I told them, like, I'm in.
It's so funny how that works, and I don't think people really understand that in other industries, how much like passion and love goes into filmmaking.
It's crazy.
And the only time crew get upset is when they think they're being somehow cheated. I mean, if
exploited.
you're straight with crew, exploited, exactly. If you're straight with crew, the goodwill that people put into it never ceases to amaze me.
Never, and this is it. So seeing that initial feedback, I was like, you know what? Let me not. This was the first time where I had to say to myself, I need to take my producer hat off now, because this hat had been sewn to my head over, you know, a number of years, so it was pretty tight. But I was like, let me not restrict myself, because this is me now directing. So I spent 6 months saying, you know what, let me just, because the idea was, again, so personal and so, you know, it was connected to some complex feelings that I was selfishly trying to figure out. At the time, I didn't.
So it had a kind of catharsis to it, do you think?
Hugely, which we'll get.
Yeah.
We'll come back to that. But I spent 6 months just fleshing it out, getting bigger and bigger and bigger, just being like, let me just get bigger and bigger and bigger. Let me not like start small. Let me start huge, and then later on we'll come back down. And so over the next 6 months, Tom Elliott, DOP, again, I remember on a producing job, a job that I was producing, I forget who was directing, but it happened to be in the car with Tom, the DOP, and we got chatting, and this came up, and he was just like, yo, that sounds amazing, I'm in. Like, you tell me whatever you need, I'm in. And that already I was like, oh my gosh, okay, cool. So him, the crew, everybody, you know, I don't think we paid anyone. I ended up putting, you know, a large chunk of money myself, not hugely, but it was still just the bare bones. We ended up shooting on 16mm, like everything was just a possibility. And it was such a nice process for me, because I finished it from start to finish, edit, the grade, everything, everyone, you know, was so generous with, and such like loads of talent. And I kind of stepped away being like, oh man, that was that didn't feel like work. I need to like seriously, it might be time
your career,
my route and my career, because this thing that I just thrown everything at, you know, went minus into debt. But at the time I didn't even see it as debt. It was just something I had to do. Like there was no, and it was nice because I didn't even do it for a specific outcome either. It was really fascinating, like process.
So almost using it like kind of a therapy at the time, and then the outward result was a change of career, right? Discovering your calling in a way.
Knowing, and this is it. I think I always knew I had a voice and something to say. What that voice is and what that, you know, thing to say is that's not the point. But it was this feeling I had, this really, you know, and obviously as we know now, the migrant crisis and the way the conversation is and the tone of voice is there's a lot I can talk about that, but seeing it, feeling it, knowing that I needed to figure out these feelings and this is the outcome.
Right.
Okay, cool.
And when you look at the finished result, did it deliver what you were expecting?
I remember the edit wasn't easy. We were in the edit for a long time. I think I edited a bit. There was 2 other people who dipped in and out. And again, it's so mad because when we got there, and I was like, yeah, we're in, done. And I don't know if I'd ever had that up until this, where I was just like, this is what was in my head.
Right. That must have been so satisfying. Yeah.
Satisfying would be an understatement.
Yeah.
But there was a weirdest scratch that I had. Spent a long time trying to find it, and then I delivered exactly it. And I remember being like, that feeling of that's it, that's done, was so nice. And I just I need to pursue that. I need to be serious about it. And luckily, people, over the next
people responded to it. Yeah,
exactly. And it wasn't a straight away. It wasn't viral. It wasn't. But over the next,
the authenticity of it is what strikes me. Seeing it for the first time. I've got a few questions.
Please hit me. Yeah. You know what? Can I go toilet?
Yeah. Perfect.
Once we got a pause, it's amazing.
It's just straight. Yeah, it's just straight through. You'll see when you open. Okay. So my question. So just from a sort of logistical point of view, it was shot over 4 days. Is that right?
3 or 4. It's 4 days. Yeah.
And London and Botany Bay. Is that Kent?
Yes. Yeah. Kent.
And this is during summer, presumably.
Yes. Yeah.
And just the casting. How did you kind of discover your cast? And were they all non-actors? What performers? One was
one's a performer. Kelechi is she's
a singer. Is it a dancer?
No, she's a dancer. She's a pole artist.
So that's a pole dancing.
Yes,
lady.
exactly.
So that's Kelechi. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. And then there's Awo. Is that Awo?
Awo is the music. Yeah, Awo is the musician, and he again specializes he's in a number of different bands. But once I was researching the music was a huge part of it, and so going on the journey of music led me to Awo, who plays the speaking drum.
That is speaking drum.
Yes, it is a speaking drum, yeah.
Yeah, because I was looking up different African drums and speaking drum, but you call it a batter drum.
Batter drum is the name.
Right.
But it's speaking drum is
it's played on the lap with
and it's got the strings and people people used to use that to communicate miles,
right?
Because they would actually be able to do messages with the drum, and it
like
travels.
Early Morse code kind of
literally early Morse code. And so spiritually as well, it's got a lot of significance, music, but the drums themselves have got huge significance in. I think it was Yoruba that was our starting point, but we really didn't kind of limit ourselves, because the casting, what I wanted to capture was a collective journey, and that whole idea where it started of me having made the same journey as the guys that the people that I'm seeing spoken about through just these really reductive numbers as a headline. So I was really keen to try and draw a line and connect us all through it, and then the music being a bit of a thread. I can't recall exactly how we cast, but it was all hands on deck. I don't think there was a casting director, so most people were friends.
Joshua, sorry, just
was it back in?
Yeah.
Most people were friends, parents of friends, just anyone and everyone I could not beg, borrow and steal, but persuade to give me their time. And I had specific.
So mostly
mostly non-actors. The twins, they're actual twins. They were non-actors. There was a casting director. It was Tatia Blake. Forgive me. She did the casting, and I had a strong idea of the characters that I wanted. Again, this feels so long ago now, but. Yeah, there was a casting director. I knew there was characters I wanted to fill, and I think I wanted a broader. There was a few specifics, but there was also some which I wanted to cover a broader demographic wise. So the music, the European faces were all specific characters, and then I think the dancing, the model, the twins. Yeah, it was an interesting one. and I forget the exact process, but yeah, it was kind of a whoever we could get. But I also had some strong ideas of who I wanted to.
So, and when you got your cast, were the roles they were immediately sort of defined in your mind of what they would be doing, or how did that come about?
I think, from what I remember, I'd written this story, and the story had specific characters, and it was a case of just kind of placing people who there were some people I knew I was really specific over, and then others there was a space which I probably could be a bit more fluid.
And going back to the Ife prayer.
Yes.
Was that written in? Was that part of the script, the prayer at the beginning?
Yeah, that was a huge part of it, and there wasn't. So to go back to actually how there wasn't an exact. It wasn't script format. I believe it was probably more of a visual document treatment that I used as the main driver. But within that, there was a lot of elements that was important to me, and I think ancestry and ancestors and that speaking to ancestors was a big part of it. And then as we went on the journey, the FA prayer fit perfectly into, it's not the message, but fit perfectly into the conversation that we were having in the film. So there was a lot of things where I think I started broad, ancestors, conversation, various different, and then our research led us to the FA prayer through his experience, because even though he's a musician and he's got a number of bands, his music is rooted in the spiritual and his background and Yoruba and that Nigerian Benin Kingdom, that side of people.
Yeah.
So that was the journey at that time. So it wasn't a generic route like my route into making films. This film specifically really epitomized the freedom in my approach, I guess. There's something in my, and it's mad to say that, to then say there was something in my head and then this is exactly it.
Right, yeah. But it does have a kind of surrealist kind of quality to it, and it has a very kind of stream of consciousness feeling to it as well.
Yeah.
And the sound particularly, I thought, was very good, good use of sound. So did Arrow have any influence on how the sound design came about, or was it just music that he was...
I think everybody who featured had an influence on what came. What came. Obviously, I was in the edit a lot, but it was in the edit with his music, and a lot.
Did he sit in the edit with you at any point?
Nah, he didn't actually. No. It was such a long process that everyone involved just dipped in and out as and when we could. So it didn't really make sense. Now, maybe if I was in a more structured approach to the project, then that would have been amazing. But he very much gave me all of the material and more that I wanted, in the sense of trying to. It was a tapestry, like all films are. They're a tapestry of what's on the screen and the elements that you add in post. So the characters, the music, the voiceover bits, the sound from the different shots, from the different scenes. I knew there was going to be the huge theme of repetition. I wanted it because the journey that I took versus the journey that we read on the news versus the journey that other people have taken, it's about that very human behavior of movement and migration. That isn't new, The media might talk about it like this new, shocking, unnatural thing, but it really isn't. That's like one of the most human things. That's older than a lot. It's probably older than the language me and you are using. Yeah, right.
Yeah, so humans want to increase their chances of
survival. We move, whether it's through seasons, whether it's through weather change. Like human beings move, whether it's through farming. So this idea of a timeless journey was a big part of it for me. And, I didn't know how that was going to look in the edit, but we got there.
And then the way that nature plays into that, the way they kind of... Because it was... so there's a bay area, so it feels like a kind of river stream.
Yep, that river was in
with
Hackney.
The baptism here, we're just about to see here.
Yeah.
And then you've got the sea as well, right? So,
water was a huge part again, and nature, and I think talking about movement, talking about nature, they're so integral, you know, whether it's a seed being blown off a tree or a migratory animal, nature embraces movement, and water connects so much of us, whether it's, you know, water connects a lot. Water in itself is a symbolic of so much. My approach and my style is I never want to be too specific to say I use I use X to represent Y.
Yeah, it doesn't need to be said, right? But what it does, it gives a sense of a consciousness, like an awareness and a consciousness. Like you're talking about being present, like the kids looking up at the trees and hearing the leaves.
It's
and,
playful, it's present.
But it's like we're part of this bigger consciousness, right?
Just here for a split second. And I think, you know, as I said, it's such a complex...
I just want to ask quickly, this shot here, was that a caught moment because the kids were cold? You put them in the streets?
No.
Like, should we shoot this, or did you actually have that in mind before?
I had it in mind, and you know, it was. I think that was the last thing we got on that day. Like we almost forgot about it because I think again those.
It reminds me a little bit of Harmony Korine kind of shot.
Yeah,
it feels like that. You know,
interesting.
the way he has that kind of, I don't know, sort of modern sort of juxtaposition between things that he's very good at.
Yeah, and again, I said, as I said, I grew up watching Army. It wasn't a direct reference, but it 100% would have influenced it. And I think those emergency blankets are so evocative in themselves. Do you know what I mean? Because they look kind of, you know, actually reminded me, it was a really big one because gold plays you see gold come out, you know, multiple times throughout the film, and those emergency blankets and covering yourself in gold, and I guess it's the juxtaposition of those blankets represent
survival situation for people that have gone on,
you know, before this I don't think I'd ever seen one in person,
right?
But immersing myself in the migrant crisis, naturally you see them a lot, and so I think this cloaking somebody in gold represents one thing, and again there's a lot of intersections of what looks like as just an image versus, you know, seeing an image of somebody on the shore of a country, whether that's Italy or the UK, seeing them covered, they've made it, or have they? And you know, it's posing questions, and so that shot was again just a really evocative thing for me.
And also the other thing I want to comment on is the fact you use underwater housing on the camera. And at the beginning of the film, you're dipping the camera in and out of the water, and then you have the baptism later. That's kind of, but you're immediately putting the viewer in a subjective feeling with the kids, right? It's like you're in the water with them. Kind of. Is that something? Is that how you always imagine it? Because it feels very subjective. It feels very kind of like a dream, like I said.
It was always conscious, and you know, it's hard to say because once it's made, and so you know, the decisions. This is all the decisions along the way, and we were fortunate enough to shoot on 16mm. I knew I wanted to go past above and below water, and baptism again has a big connotation in terms of symbolically what baptism means, and water is central to the migrant journey when you're crossing oceans, whether that's in a bougie yacht or in a dinghy, and this idea of passing through it for different people, it's very, very, it's symbolic.
Just to finish up then, I want to, for Kindred, I want to ask your reasons for shooting, obviously 16mm I think was the right format to shoot, because it definitely has a feeling of kind of slight nostalgia, slight kind of family history feeling to it. It has a bit more weight, the colours are more powerful and more separate and kind of more kind of organic, and
of course
nature always presents very well, I think, on film as well. But is that something that was that a definite kind of,
you know, it wasn't definite, nothing. I try and approach my films that everything's a question and everything is a decision to be made. There was a lot of conversations back and forth with me and Tom, the DOP. And I can't remember the exact, but there was one moment where it was just like, 16mm makes sense. we keep going back, we're going round, we keep, I'm looking at all these images. So I can't recall the images that I took to him or the reason at the time. But yeah, like you said, it felt like the right decision. And, because we didn't have a huge budget, I initially went in thinking that's probably silly. I'm adding
complicating it for yourself.
I'm complicating it.
Yeah.
But we got to the decision really organically, and it made perfect sense. And I'm so glad I did. And then again, since that now, film has there's a physical nature to film.
Yeah.
The chemicals and
it's alchemy.
The alchemy.
It's turning silver into rust. Actually,
exactly, which
has a soul to it.
Has a soul to it and connects to the actual
and also
story.
sacred. The way you shoot it, it feels more sacred because you hear the money
100%.
going through it. It has more of a focus to people.
More of a focus. So you're right. There's a sacredness to it, and there's a spiritual element, and all of these things were true and central to the project itself. So it made perfect sense.
So just to finish up, I'll speak a little bit about the Werner Herzog. You spoke about
esoteric, maybe.
No, it's not esoteric.
No,
ecstatic truth. Yeah.
Ecstatic truth. Yes.
Yeah. Is it ecstatic or ascetic?
Let's see
truth?
the word.
Ecstatic. It is ecstatic truth.
It's ecstatic truth.
Yeah, because I was thinking ecstatic truth also rings true of your work because your work's it's like a blend of narrative documentary and it's narrative documentary kind of poetry rather than just literal realism. So you're sort of taking documentary and you're making it kind of more poetic. There's I'm trying to think of other films. I mean, Werner Herzog is a good example of another sort of documentary film.
No, a lot of people live in that space, and it's funny because I've not actually thought about that quote in a while, but then my journey since has actually really, because I think for me, I'm trying to work it out, but objective truth is a very complex thing. As we know as filmmakers, there's always going to be some sort of influence,
Yeah, absolutely.
At every single stage.
The moment you turn a camera on, that you've made a decision.
If you point it this way or that way, So the idea of truth within cinema is a very interesting...
It's a flawed concept,
It's a flawed concept in one hand because documentaries are written and fiction relies upon magic moments that you can't write. So there's always... Don't get me wrong, there's some doc which tries to get as close to objectively true as possible. And there's also within fiction, there's some fiction which is based on true stories, let's just say as a basic example. And I think for me, I really I believe there is objective truth. The sun's going to rise tomorrow. Nature has rules, that are very consistent, physical laws, and I think you can find that within story, archetypes, genres. I think there's a very real space which is not about I've captured something that happened or I've captured something that didn't happen. I don't think it's about that when it comes to truth and lies. I think it's more a case of character tropes, genres, all of these things tap into deep truth.
Yeah, it's funny. That's exactly what I was thinking. I was hoping you might say deep truth. I remember reading a book. There's a comedian called Norm Macdonald, and he wrote a biography. He's a brilliant American comedian. Died from cancer recently, but his biography was a series of stories, exaggerated stories. And he said, I wanted to use an allegory. I wanted to tell these stories to hint at a deeper truth, because I could tell the story just on the surface level, but the truth wouldn't be hinting at a deeper human truth. Yeah. And I think that's what you're doing. You're kind of using the tools that you have to hint at a deeper truth. And that's partly the feeling of documentary, which is, again, like a very kind of debatable thing in itself, right? But it's like, it's tropes of reality in a way. It's like what makes something feel real is like, a 60mm camera with a zoom lens and zooming in, zooming out. In the 1960s, that would feel very like a real documentary compared to, so there's kind of tropes of realism.
There's places you tap into it. And for me as well, I think this is something recently I've really been looking at, and in a lot of conversations about folklore. And there's a lot of, there's Greek mythology, there's Irish folklore, there's Yoruba stories. When you think recent history, modern history, stories were told through word of mouth, and stories would change. It wouldn't be like, okay, they wouldn't sit around a fire reading the exact script. They'd sit around a fire and they'd let it go where it goes. And every time it's different. Doesn't mean it's changing and becoming less true. There's the argument to say it's becoming more true.
It's more alive, yeah.
It's more alive, because it's alive. And so I think it's something I think about a lot, and it's interesting that it started with my first...
Well, I mean, it's surprising how quickly you found a voice with your first film, right? So we're going to look at some more of your work now, but you can see there's definitely a through line going through your work. So.
And I like people, my nearest and dearest, they all tell me I can see my style, but I don't see it. Not that I ignore it or it's not a thing, but it's a series of decisions. So if you give me 2 takes, I will choose 1 take. If you give me a room, I'll choose all these things build up my style, but I don't consciously think of a style, which is quite liberating and quite freeing, because I can just be quiet. And that might connect to how and why I've quickly, again, it's all relative, but might be how I found my voice or because I just lean into...
Well, I mean, your first job was a massively emotional, personal project that you felt the need to make, even though at the time you didn't call yourself a director, right? Now, to start like that means that you have a truth antenna, because I think what directors basically have is they have an antenna that signals to them when something it's the correct tone and when something's the wrong tone. It's like a tuning fork, like
exactly.
Is it the correct tone? Is it the wrong tone?
Yeah.
And I think that's what directors, when they attune themselves to that, that's really all their job is to do that, because everyone else, if they're selected correctly, will take care of the rest of it.
100%.
And what you need to do is you have to have that antenna up.
100%. Yeah, it's so true.
So should we now look at I&I,
let's do it.
And now I want to set this up by talking a little bit. Well, first we can talk a little bit about the fact it was at Steve McQueen's Lammas Park. Is that right?
Lammas Park. Yeah.
So do you want to talk a little bit about the experience of how did that
working
come
with
about?
Steve?
Yeah.
It came about just randomly. Excuse me, I heard that. It came about randomly. My work got put in front of him. He was setting up a new company in terms of, he wanted to, we all know who he was, and he was setting up a company to help the next generation or, help develop new talent. And 17-year-old me going back to, would never have dreamt of it. It was not even
on the
I just needed to figure it out what it was first. So to get that call and that message and then be put in a room with him and then actually work with him, words can't describe it. But there wasn't a plan. There wasn't like this big master plan I put together. It just happened.
But how did they approach you? Because did they see Kindred and they approached you because that, or did you have the script for I&I and you submitted that?
No, I&I was something we developed together whilst I was there. But they saw Kindred and 1 or 2 other stuff we might get a chance to see, like my Gucci films and my work in commercials.
Yeah.
At the same time, my agent, so post Kindred, within the next 2 years, I managed to get an agent. And again, I didn't just go out looking, but somebody sent my work to somebody else who then saw something in it and was just like, yo, I'd love to rep you for film and television. Again, I was stuff that I thought in the distance, but it came
quite quickly,
somewhat quickly.
Yeah.
And so in the same way, my agent had sent, at the time, I've got a feature film that I'm developing with Lammas and Steve. And so my commercials got placed in front of him and his team. They were like, oh my God, we'd love to meet you, talk about representation. And at the same time, they're like, oh, and actually, I think we've got you one of your projects already. And so it all kind of just landed in all at the same time. Perfect. So I was obviously like, yeah, I'd love to. Like, it was beyond my wildest dreams. So that was how the relationship started. Then we made a few commercials together, made I&I. And then we're also developing a feature film as well. So
this is the sci-fi one.
No, this is the coming of age.
Oh, right. Okay, we'll talk about this at the end if that's okay.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So to get into I&I, to set it up, so you developed this script with.
It's my story, but I worked with a writer.
Right. David Branham.
Yes.
Daniel Brannan.
Daniel Braham, yes.
Yeah, Brannan. Yeah. And how did you meet him?
One of the execs, one of the producers, just introduced us, and we got on really well. And anytime I'm looking for people to work with, it's more just about, do we get on?
Is he writing other stuff with you at the moment?
Not with me, no. But he's a busy guy. Last time I checked, and yeah, he's done a few. He's done a few things for various series. Like, yeah, he's a working writer, very talented, and we had quite a strict deadline to hit because Canon supported us for I&I. We almost approached it like a commercial. We had deadlines to finish, get the script ready.
So Canon's part funded it?
Yeah, Canon funded the whole thing.
They completely funded it?
Completely funded it. Dream.
And you shot on their cameras?
Shot on their cameras, all of their lenses. Like, it was a dream project.
Oh,
thought it was a question time. So yeah, no, Canon, it was a dream project, and yeah, we had like 6 weeks. I got a phone call one day, have you got any ideas? I was like, yeah, I've got a few. They ranged from, I didn't have any scripts that I was like, yes, I'm ready to shoot this. It was more like I had a couple pages on this, I had a paragraph here, and I shared about 3 to Canon, and they chose what we now call I9.
Right. And so the theme of this, would you say, is sort of mental health? Would you say?
What's really nice is talking about Kindred and then looking at this. It's really interesting because, when you start out in a career, everything in a career in film, everything's a bit slower, You're making little bits and bobs here and there. If you can make one thing that you're proud of a year, you're pretty much in a good place, because that one thing will then lead, When I look back at all my films, the ones that are finished and the ones that are still, either a script or in my drafts somewhere, every project reflects exactly where I was at in my life. Like, it's really interesting. Like, we've spoken about Kindred and the things I was wrestling with and how and why it was personal, but also political. I was locked down, all of us, in this very bizarre, going through this very bizarre experience. Me just being at home and in my head so much, being like, not even what is going on, but what is this voice in my head?
Can I just stop you there? There's something I've been dying to talk to you about.
Oh yeah, please.
So I read 2 books. Well, one book a long time ago, it was a massive influence on me, and then something more recently that also had a massive influence on me. And I just have to shout them out because they both basically say the same thing. And when I saw this, it really resonated with me. Because one of the books is called The Power of Now by a guy called Eckhart Tolle.
I've heard of it. I've not read it, but I know the book.
And at the beginning, he has basically what's called an ego death. And what part of the process of his ego death is being so miserable with the weight of life on his shoulders. He was a lecturer in a university, and he was basically following this woman down the road, and she was screaming and hollowing and like proper mental unwell, just making all these kind of weird noises and shouting and stuff. And he followed her. He happened to be walking the same way as her, and then she ended up going into his college where he was a lecturer, and he realised she's either a student or she's another lecturer. And then he went into the bathroom, he looked in the mirror at himself, and he went, the only difference between me and this woman is that she's saying the stuff, but I'm thinking the stuff. But that's the only difference between her having a perceivable mental breakdown and him being a normal human being, right?
All of this.
So he started having this realization that I can't live with myself anymore. I can't live with myself. And he was like, hang on a second, that's a duality. There's two things in my head here, right?
Crazy.
And then,
not crazy,
so that was a big, the big revelation of what the Buddhists call big mind, small mind, the ego and the observer, something behind ego watching it. So, and then The Untethered Soul, Michael Singer's another book. It's a very, very influential book, spiritual book. I only read it about a year ago, and at the beginning of that book, it's it's the same theme basically. You stand, it's an exercise. You stand in front of the mirror and you look at and you say hello to yourself, and you keep saying the word hello to yourself, and you go, I'm hearing this word hello coming out my mouth, and I'm seeing myself saying hello, but there's someone witnessing that. Who is witnessing that? Yeah. Because it's not just one of you inside. Yeah. There's that person saying hello, and then there's a witness to that, right? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when I was watching your I&I, I was thinking, this is just a perfect visual examination of these very, very fundamental themes of what it is to be human. And I just wanted to sort of say, wow, because it's like, it's something that's so kind of, like I say, it's
how
just,
do you even?
it's the foundation of what it is to be human, and you're exploring it in a way that I hadn't actually seen before. And I really, from the first feeling I got, I'm sort of ranting a little bit.
No.
First thing I got was like, oh, it's going to be a gay love story, right? This is two guys waking up in bed together, right? It's the first thing I thought. And then when I started realising that it's his thoughts, it's his ego or whatever, I was like, oh, okay, this is something I haven't seen before, right? And it just really, as I say, it so resonated with me.
No, honestly, I really appreciate you sharing that, because, I like, separately, I think I've been on my own spiritual journey, especially since before, but I didn't directly connect it. It wasn't like I read any of those and thought that. I woke up one day and I was asking myself that same question. Like, and I didn't, this is the thing I think about me and why I realised, okay, I'm fortunate enough to have found what I feel like I'm born to do, because, you know, the film was born out of me in the shower, literally screaming at myself. Not through, luckily it wasn't, I never got to the stage of, you know, the power of now, or for being like, I can't live with myself. But I was asking myself, this is very hard. This guy is very hard to live with. Like, what in the world is going on? And then the same thing in what you said about the power of now is this, like, luckily I was just like quite, because, you know, we all know it, the shame around this thing in your head. You have to fight the battle with this thing in your head, and you're like, why am I battling? And it's a beautiful story that you shared, in the sense of the only difference, because I was somewhat aware enough to be like, nah, we're all going through this and no one talks about it. We all walk down the street nodding and smiling, and we're all losing our minds, especially at that point. So that got me thinking, and I was, you know, started to go round and round being like, this experience is mad. What is it? And, you know, the thing that we can all relate with, I think, going through that period of isolation, and I was very fortunate. So then it didn't come from a place of I've had it really bad. It just came from a place of, this is so unique that bang, everything's paused. And all of a sudden I'm aware of this other voice now, because of no distractions. What is this other voice? And then a lot of the starting point was just like, there's loads we can talk about, but in the sense of, I knew the film that I wanted to make had to have a big, broad balance. It wasn't about the reveal. It wasn't about hiding it. Obviously, in the beginning, there is various stages where people just realise for themselves, which I wasn't... Yeah, it was something we considered, but I wasn't overly precious. It wasn't a thing of gotcha, or like, you know, like a Fight Club idea.
Yeah.
But for me, one of the biggest elements was like, this needs to be the person, my inner self is, and this changes second to second, not day to day, not hour to hour, second to second. 1 minute I'm my biggest cheerleader. Next second I could be my bully, like in terms of terrorizing myself. Next minute I'm like, I am hilarious, in terms of, I wish people knew how funny do you know what I mean? And then a minute later it will be my biggest doubter, my biggest hater, and that's constant, second to second to second.
And it jumps back and forth like constantly,
and no one talks about it.
Yeah, and it's impossible to stop, right? It's the hardest thing in the world as a human is to stop that chatter.
It's to stop it. And, you know, Buddhists will have one theory, capitalists will have another theory. I don't know, you know, hedonists in their own way will have their own. So there's so many ways which we distract ourselves.
And the other crazy thing to think about it is, I don't know which book I got it from, maybe another one, but it's like we have apparently around 60,000 thoughts a day. And the thing that's so crazy is the next day, most of the thoughts will be the same thoughts. So we have a collection of 60,000 thoughts, and there's probably only a few hundred of them that change each day. Isn't that mental?
It's mad. Yeah. And we don't talk. Why is this not common? This is one of the few things we all have in common, we don't talk about it. So this was, again, a selfish me trying to figure out what, just to make sense. That was it. But make sense in a way that appeals to others, or make sense that in ways that people can recognize. And like, it almost was you can almost describe it as an unreliable narrator.
Yeah, right.
Because, and that's again another story trope.
That's interesting. Yeah, it's another layer to it. Yeah.
Because every single thought that comes in. And again, this is probably stuff I've picked up on my journey along the way, which I know for a fact that, you know, you'll have a lot to say about. But in the sense of, you know, thoughts come and go. You have to let them pass. None of them are objectively true or objectively false. They're not, you know, they're not to be trusted, but you also can't get away from. So you have to learn how to have that. And I think what you will really like in a huge way, because again, I'm sure you might have questions coming about music, but there was musical elements in this film which were really integral. And I think for me were really important. And again, I can get into it now, or do you want to wait?
No, you can totally get into it now.
So like the soundtrack for I was percussive, and you know, originally the influence was Birdman.
Yeah, right. I was thinking it could be a bit.
And
yeah.
There was a number of reasons that we ended up going for it, because again, there's a number of different versions of this film. I could have made it I, which was slapstick and jokes, very funny. I could have made a version of I which was very serious and very heavy.
Well, what you've done though is you've done both. You've got the pathos, and you've gone and you've got the peaks and the troughs.
That was super important to me,
yeah.
Because again, if I'd made a funny film,
you would be diminishing the power of it, right?
Of everything else. And again, on my own journey, I'm so grateful for every side of me. Yeah. And I've come to terms with every side. We're going to come into get into this, but you know, this is very true of Greenpeace as well. But by being too worthy, because you know, you make it too funny, you lose the power of it. But by being too worthy, you lose the entertainment of it, and you lose the audience, right? Exactly.
So it's that fine line.
And it's dishonest is a strong word, and I'll finish the music point because it's a really interesting one. But all of us are well-rounded. All of us, you know, comedians are the most serious people around. Serious people have something inside of them that they actually, do you know what I mean? And I think we walk around with these smiles on our faces, and we hide parts of ourselves that we don't think we should show, or we don't think should be seen. And that, for me, on my journey, the conflict, that's where a lot of conflict comes, where it's like the funny man in the room and feels the need to always be funny, or the serious person feels the need to always be serious. And all of us are so multifaceted. With these 60,000 thoughts come from somewhere. I don't know where, that's probably another combo. But I really like, so going back to the music and why we went with percussive and why the track at the end we fought for, so fortunate to have, is because I really love this idea of harmony and disharmony. And I really, again, these complex thoughts in my head were playing out as like, you know, a beautiful track is so harmonic and just pleasant. Whereas when stuff is offbeat and off kilter, it becomes stressful and like, oh.
Yeah. And very interesting. Yeah, because I can see how that works in the story. He finds his own harmony at the end, and then the music kicks in. I love the way you leave the guy in the door and he just comes into the window on his own. That's just it really
was subtle,
beautiful.
And you know that was a line in the script of all it said was 2 become 1.
Yeah.
And everyone kept asking, are we doing this in post? Is this going to be a whatever? And I knew it wasn't going to be post.
So elegant not to do it in post.
I knew that was it, but I didn't know how. And then me and Korshan, the DOP, we were out. We had a drink once after a recce, and bang, we both just collectively were like, camera there, this there, and then bang, and that was it. Yeah. And that came right at the end of, you know, almost shooting. So anyway, the harmony was a really important thing, and that was a way for me to understand myself, to be like, oh, okay, certain things, certain environments, certain people, certain atmospheres strike a chord to me, and it's like music. You know, our conversation, even before we turn the camera on, it just flowed. Certain things make me feel a bit janky. And too many janky things, too many janky experiences, and I'm not a happy person. Yeah. My inner self is screaming at me, beating myself up in a headlock. So I like really the film and a number of layers from the music, but that music analogy took shape in so many different elements. And again, this was just me in lockdown, losing my mind, thinking, what is it? Who is this person? Who's this person terrorizing me? And why? And then let me figure this out. Fortunately enough, Canon, Lamas, the team, Steve McQueen lined up and helped me figure it out, which I'm insanely grateful for.
Right, I mean, it was all for a good cause, man, because I mean, I have to say, I absolutely love this film.
Appreciate it, man, thank you.
So I just want to talk to you a bit, you know, talking about the fight sequence and then flashing back to the different and getting more information from, so maybe they were fighting, maybe that's the internal battle he's having for all of these different. I want to talk a little bit about the barber sequence as well. Just the whole Afro-Caribbean barbering. I've got to say, on a personal note, if I could have any job in the world, I'd want to change my race and be an Afro-Caribbean barber, because honestly, it just sounds like they're having so much fun in that. Every time I go past on my bike and I see these guys there, they're always like, it just seems like the best. It's like a watering hole, right? It's just the best place for people to.
Hugely, and honestly, like, there's a number of reasons why, but just to touch upon a few, for me, like, a male space is so important, and that in itself, I think that as a barber is pretty much the most important male space. The one place we actually talk, the one place we interact. It's quite intimate, we're touching, we are sharing our deepest, darkest thoughts, our dirtiest jokes, it's all happens here. And as we know, men need places to talk. They're few and far between. So that was one. Two, I remember like yesterday growing up as a child and my mum taking me to the barbers. And obviously it's a male space, but as a child, you come in, your mum asks for what you want. Your mum tells, nah, a bit more here, bit less there, blah, blah, blah. And I remember the first time that I went alone and my mum was like, cool, here's your money, you go. I'm going to go shopping, or I'm going to do something else. And that in itself is such a rite of passage, because
you've got to deal with the banter on your own, man. And
I've got to ask for I've got to speak up.
Yeah,
I've got to ask for what I want.
You're a young man going in there on your own. They're going to test you, right?
And this is all men. And as we know, and I think it's a whole nother convo, but the rites of passage of men, of what is the line between childhood, adolescence, and adulthood. We know the adolescence the series that it's a very topical moment for now, and it was just something I was very conscious and aware of, and being like, even now as an adult, it's still an intense environment. Anyone else, going into a new barber's, going into an old barber's, speaking up when it's your turn. Not wanting to, there's the barber in the corner who, he's not busy for a reason. So even though he's going to try and call me over, I'm going to stand firm. I'm going to hold my ground. And so, this space for me is such fascinating. And that's why it gets used a lot in so many, because it's a very, very rich space. A lot of formative experiences happen there. So that's
it's like a kind of cinematic kind of flight of stairs or door frame or something. It's
exactly.
Like, it's very strong.
So that's why we went in the barber.
Very good. And then I also want to talk about, so just finishing up the flashback drum soundtrack. It's kind of, I thought it was just perfect the way the drums kind of give the fight, because if you had a different kind of more sort of darker music over the fight sequence, it would tonally be wrong for it. The drum sequence gives it a little bit of kind of like, physical comedy kind of to it, because it is kind of absurd that we all have, we all struggle with this demon in our head that we fight with constantly, and the fighting is almost like two friends fighting rather
100%.
than anything more darker than that, 100%, right?
100%. But as we know, friends, family, they're the ones you have the most fierce fights with, because there's an extra layer. And the fight, I guess the image of a fight was one of the first few images. I don't recall how much. I think I knew the edit was going to be somewhere around this. I think I had an idea of jumping back and forth, because it's all set in a day, and as we said, those 60,000 thoughts are relentless. They don't stop. So like this idea that in every moment there's every feeling, do you know what I mean? Even when you're happy, you will still get the odd dark thoughts, but all that happens is it passes quicker. Or there's, as you said, there's that is going to stick with me a long time. I'm still thinking about it. He's 60,000 and only 400 of them are new. Is wild, but makes total sense.
You can break up with your wife like 20 years ago, and you can still be having the same thought 100%,
you had. Same thoughts, same conversations.
20 years later,
100%.
In your head,
And that's something to be spoken about. I think there's some, for me, this film was a way to, not even a self-righteous way, but it's to start a conversation, to be like, this isn't just me, guys. I'll say it out loud.
This is universal,
This is universal, but we're all, it's so overwhelming, this voice. It's so all-consuming that we get trapped in it. And then it becomes this thing of, it becomes a heavy secret. It becomes heavy shame. It becomes heavy source of anxiety or things we build up. It's a powerful tool, our brain.
But it's such a, when I saw it, it was such a kind of, why hadn't I seen this before? Because it's such an obvious portrayal of, like,
it's weird, isn't it? Yeah, it's a weird one.
Why has no one done this in cinema before? It's such an,
it's a weird one, and you
must have been so excited when you stumbled across it, right? When you kind of
100%
in your mind, you must have gone, my God, this is going to be
100%. But again, because of where it came from lockdown. It came from me fighting myself like this.
Yeah.
So yes, I'm happy, but I'm also I'm wrestling with myself. So it's not like I'm at home chilling. It's like, and I think that's what was really nice about having a few more pieces of work under my name now. We spoke with Kindred in length about where it came from. Everything that I'm excited about comes from a place of asking hard questions, looking in a direction which people most maybe won't want to, or this or that. So like, I'll happily do that, and the reward for it, I guess, is my ideas or creativity, because I'm trying to figure it out, and in my brain apparently it works through character, story, image, sound. So I'm wrestling with these things,
like we said earlier, catharsis and therapy for you to be doing this, and as a consequence, the end result has a soul and an authenticity to it that's very hard for filmmakers to achieve, actually. And it's a lesson to all filmmakers out there, is if you start with something that you're personally struggling with,
ask yourself tough questions.
That's a good start.
It's mad because that, for me personally, it's been so amazing to figure that out, or to realize that. And naturally, me and my friends, my family, the people around me, I love talking politics. I love asking hard questions. And I think I don't do it. I'm not like, I want to try and save the world. I'm like, I want to try and figure the world out. I want to try and figure human beings out.
See, that's very, very good. Like, I love the fact you just said that, because the problem with the people that want to try and save the world is there's a certain narcissism that comes with that. Do you know what I mean? And because how dare you think you're the one that's going to save the world, right? It's like when people talk to me about climate change and go, it's like we'll get onto that next. We're going to save the world, and I'm like, well, the world's actually okay as it is. It'll just raise the temperature a few degrees. It'll kill us all off, and then it'll go back to being normal, right? Just like what happened with lockdown, right? Within a few days of the planes not flying, nature just took over. Do you notice how quickly things were growing, man? So it's not that we're going to save. We're going to save maybe ourselves if we're lucky, right? That's what we should be thinking about.
If we're lucky, focus on that.
So the narcissism is right. It's not trying to save the world. It's trying to work out what's going on, because this thing's been around for thousands of years before we even
and afterwards.
Exactly, and it's going to carry on for that. There you go. Literally,
like time becomes.
Well, there you go.
Time becomes a very, very strange concept when you actually deep it. But maybe it's a youth, adolescent thing that you want to save the world. Maybe that's it. Because maybe one day I thought, maybe there was once upon a time when I thought it, but all my ideas just come from me asking tough questions and really looking in the mirror.
So this is a perfect segue onto Greenpeace. But before we move on, I just want to say one more thing about I&I.
I don't know how well I talked about that, because there was so...
No, man, it was brilliant. Honestly, I thought the conversation was great. Nice. What do you think? It's great, isn't it? Yeah.
Nice.
He's got to say that. But I can see he means it. But one last thing I want to talk about is the fact that it's also a kind of buddy movie as well, right? It's also two guys, because you're kind of watching a relationship and it's him and everything, but because you didn't cast identical twins, because you kind of kept the guys separate a little bit, you're also, and I love the wardrobe, kind of like the extreme.
And you know what, this is a good point actually. So I have to give credit to the team around me, like big shouts out to so many people, but like firstly Coralie Rose, casting director, that decision that you said about them not being, because the idea started somewhere, but the crew and the team really pushed it in every direction. And I have to, Coralie was the one who opened my eyes to not casting identical twins or something close, because that decision would have had implications on performance. But also actually then myself and Coralie started talking about what does RNSL look like? And that not changed the course of the film, but dictated so many decisions, because the biggest people might have the smallest inner selves.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, the most masculine people might have the most feminine, you know, and that duality, and that posed so many crazy and interesting questions, which I love. And so that challenge,
it gives it another layer of depth. I mean, particularly in the barber shop, when you can see he's really angry, but he doesn't have the sort of the machismo to express it, and yet his inner self's going, "You pussy, why aren't you saying anything?" Do you know what I mean?
Like, we've all been there. And so, that was a huge, like, Coralie, he's got so much. Yeah, I owe her so much in terms of from what you see in the final. Same with wardrobe. Like, there's a lot of small details.
I love the wardrobe. Because the wardrobe's actually the thing that sells the idea. Because without the wardrobe, you just think it's a buddy movie, right?
Yeah.
You wouldn't. The wardrobe's the thing that every time, particularly when he sits in the toilet and wearing the same top, and they're just, and I'm like, of course, this is him, right?
100%. With slight differences, you know, and that's Nisha, the costume designer, huge shout. She smashed it. Korshan, the DOP, you know, we spoke a lot about the language and what we're trying to do, and the range and the stiller moments to the more crazier moments. And again, like, being on set, I'm fortunate enough to have worked on stuff I'm really proud of, and, you know, the magic moments. All the best parts of this was just me watching Korshan, Sam and Jonathan, the two leads, just in awe. I just sat back and watched them, and I was in awe. How the precision blew me away, in terms of, there was some times when I'd be sat, Korshan, his hand held in him finding people, like the barbershop scene was beautiful to watch. It felt like music. I don't even know how, but the connection the three of them had, the chemistry the three of them, the DOP, the two leads had, and how it just, like, yes, we can write the script, yes, we can give all the direction, but then there's something to just sit back and watch them just do their thing.
So how much of it was improvised and how much of it was actually scripted?
Across the whole. I think it was really nice because we had one day of rehearsal, mainly just for the fight scene with the stunt coordinator. But throughout, from when we wrote the script to when we were in the edit, I already spoke about how I knew I wanted the balance. Buddy film, a love story, a fight scene, you know, a mental, whatever, all of the tone, however you would want to describe them, from best friends, lovers, to worst enemies, and everything in between. And what I constantly was saying was, every line can be read by a different one of those characters. Do you know what I mean? And so every line didn't have a single meaning. Every line could have been like a jibe, or an actual pat on the back, or an actual, like, nasty, you know, comment. And every line in the script could be read in those ways. And so I literally said to them, Samuel and Jonathan, I was just like, I don't know if you want to hear this, but there's no right or wrong way. Like, I said to them, I want to be in the edit.
Did they know each other before this?
Yeah, it's another really good story, which I'll tell you about. Really nice story. But I said to them, there's no right or wrong way. I want to get into the edit, and I want to be able to have the material to then
sort of score it all in the edit.
Exactly, finesse the journey.
Yeah.
So I want to be like, oh, this bit's too heavy. Have we got to take that's lighter, or have we got to take that's funnier, have we got to take, and that's for every single take. And that's not an easy thing to take. And on cast, two really amazing stories, or things that I was really proud when I look back on, is, you know, we knew the lead was going to be black, in and around the late 20s, early 30s age group, age range. So, you know, when you've already pinning it down, there's not loads. You know, we were fortunate enough to, you know, when Steve McQueen's name is on a project, you know, when Cannon's on it, you know, we can aim for the stars. So we were aiming for the stars, and we were looking at, okay, cool, here's the list of established people in that window, and here's a few, you know, who are not as established but have got something. All the while we're trying to pair as well. So it's about chemistry, not just the physical chemistry, but the acting chemistry, the performance chemistry, you know. loads of understanding. And so, yeah, with Coralie, we started the conversation with, okay, cool, actually, they don't need to look the same. Like, let's intentionally look at the contrast. Let's see what that says about the story. 1. 2, first round was cast. We spent like 2 days casting. Maybe, I don't know, 15 people in that 2 days. Samuel was somebody who I was personally quite excited to meet. You know, I go into casting open-minded, but I also had a bit of an aim at being like, and you know what, more than me, Coralie was excited, and I think that fed into me. I was like, okay, cool, let's see. And I found casting quite hard. This is the first, casting is quite a mystery. If I look at my filmmaking journey, casting is probably the one side where I'm like, geez, tough decisions. Because when I'm writing, I don't write with images. That's a whole nother conversation. My mind's quite blank. I see character. I see all of the, you know, characteristics, but I don't have, okay.
You don't have someone in mind.
Which is, you know, quite weird. Everyone always asks me that. Or at the start, when people start casting, they'll be like, okay, who's your dream? And I'm like, I actually don't have a dream.
And that keeps it open in a way.
Super open, almost too open sometimes in a way. So anyway, I go into the casting. Samuel's the last person on the day 2 or whatever. So these were the full shortlist. People who were available, interested, and could make it. On the way out, we have a really nice chat. And my processing with this was really much about, what did you like about the script? What did it mean to you? Because, you know, duality means different things to everybody. Some people might have been, yeah, when I was at drama school, I really felt that. When I was when I was in the ends, you know, growing up, everyone has something where I was hoping, and most came back, where they'd read the script and they're really moved by it for a very specific personal journey. So I was really, really intrigued to tapping into that journey and what it meant for them, because I didn't want to, you know, my directing style, which is I'm finding along the way, is just like, it's a collaboration, man. We're all coming here to create this together. I want you as invested as I am. This shouldn't be a dictatorship where I'm just, you know, no. Yes, I'm leading, but I'm also want you to feel safe and comfortable and bring your own, you know, give me your ideas, give me your wild cards. I'll tell you if it's wrong, but the fact that if you can feel safe enough to share that with me, I take that very seriously. So anyway, Jonathan's the last guy. He you know, really was moved by the script, shared some really interesting stories and perspectives that was, you know, opened, challenged, and gave me a lot of food for thought. On the way out, he's just like, because he knew obviously the process of casting and, you know, people coming in and out. And on the way out, he's like, have you spoken to someone called Jonathan Ajayi? On the way out of his audition. And I was like, nah. And he was just like, I reckon he would be so good at this role. And I was just like,
what, the role he was casting for?
Yeah.
Huh.
So Samuel, on the way out, was just like, have you spoke to this person? I think he'd be sick for this. And I was just like, mind blown because of that same reason. I'm like, you're coming to an audition and you're recommending someone else is wild. So just for that alone, I need to find out who this person is. So anyway, the casting director, next morning, Jonathan's in. Like we managed to get him the script. We get his agent. He likes it. He comes in. So I'm pretty sure it was the next day or the following, just after the weekend. So Jonathan comes in, same thing. He's got such a fascinating dynamic because there's a lot of ways you can read the film. You could look at it being like inner child, outer child, inner self, outer self. You know, we talked a lot about, I forget the exact words, but Samuel, when you look at his role before this, I've not seen everything that he's been in since, but he's always cast as the introspective, serious roles. That's him. That's his roles. Jonathan, within mainly he was talking about his friendship groups. He's always not cast, but in his friendship groups, if I remember rightly, and I don't think he'll mind me sharing it, he's always the joker and the life and the soul of the party. And I love the idea when I was in the conversation with them, each of them really were super aware of those expectations and playing that role and playing that part. Because as we know it now, comedians, let's say broadly speaking, obviously they're full of jokes, but actually they're the most serious people in the room. You know, the Tortured Souls, the Robin Williams, they're like, there's people who, Jim Carrey now, where it's just like, you live your life performing, but
yeah, it's a facade for something.
It's a facade, and the well-rounded humans that we are means that we also have the other sides. And I think you're almost hyper aware of the other side, because there's a bit of a sadness, and this is not me talking for them, but if you're always known to be the life and soul, when you're not in that mood, it's heavy, because you're like, everyone's expecting this thing and I don't want to be that thing, and who even am I, because blah blah blah. So firstly, Samuel recommending Jonathan blew my mind. Without the recommendations, both of them blew my mind. So now getting back in the room together, and we're rehearsing. In my process, whilst we were casting for this, we would read a few pages of the script, but I got everybody to read for both. During in the script, we were just calling it 1 and 2, I think. Let's say very simply, we're just like 1 and 2. So 1 being the outside, 2 being the inside. 1 being the more you're acting less it's more in your facial expressions, it's more in what you're not doing or saying. 2 being overt. So it was really fun, because in the audition they both played both. We got them together. We sent the deal memo, they both agreed, we got them in. They didn't actually know which roles they were playing. So we came to rehearsals and they were like, nah, I'm dying to know. And the obvious choice would have been the opposite. And I was just like, nah, we're going to switch it up. Purely because I loved how their level of understanding of the other side.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
And they had a real...
Yeah.
Jonathan, I think he was talking for his friendship groups, but Jonathan had this deep thing of, nah, I'm usually the extrovert, but and we got into it about that, how that feels, and about how, you know, the other side might get neglected, or how, you know, you have to perform but protect, and then same with Samuel. And so it was really nice, because A, I didn't pressure myself to decide, but B, it was a risk, me thinking, you know what, flip it. Oops, just touched like flip it. And the courage and the openness for them as well to respond to that was so inspiring, and they ran away with it. So like, there was improvisation, but then if you were to read the script now, it's really fascinating, because yes, I gave them full agency. I was really like, come with it, but then I was also, you know, directing as and when we needed to, because, you know, it's super important. And yeah, man, I just love how trusting they were of me. And that's something I just took so seriously, because it's not easy. I couldn't do what they do. I'm not, some directors are like, yeah, I've been acting. I could not at all. But for someone to give them their full selves to your vision, it's sacred. It's a real, you know, it's important. And I think the respect was so mutual between us all. Coralie, Nisha, costume, the editor, Amber smashed it. You know, the whole team, even the gaffer, the lighting team, like everybody really just created such an incredibly safe space, not only for me but for them.
One last thought on this is when you say you stood back and let them do their performance and they improvise and vibe off each other, and then you at times you had to step in. Can you talk us through that a little bit? Because I mean, you at that point you weren't a very experienced director, right? Yet you had an instinct of knowing, and it's quite an directing for many of the young filmmakers, quite an abstract thing. So how what would you say? What advice would you give to a young director? How do you know when to step in and when to let it play?
I think we talked about it earlier. You put it really well about the antennae and instinct. Those 2 words that's it. As a director, you are getting paid for your instinct. You know, that's the ideal. And again, as I said, this is a dream project. You're not always going to have the dream conditions. Sometimes you are going to have to be pushed. You're going to have to fight against pushback. You're going to have to make very quick decisions when you're not really sure. You know, you know. So you're never going to have the ideal, or you're not always going to have the ideal conditions, nor are you even always going to know the answer, but your instinct is constantly it. And for me, that goes twofold, because on one hand, I learn from my mistakes. So I know when I pick up a camera, not even me literally, but when we get on set, I'm drawn upon all my experience, all the mistakes that I've made, and I've made a lot. So I'm going to give all the credit to my instinct, but whether that's an innate thing or whether that's due to my experience is up for debate. But I've made a lot of mistakes and really been honest with myself and have to learn with my mistakes constantly. So naturally, when I pick up a camera, I'm like, okay, we need to, whether it's the framing, whether it's, you know, there's countless things that I draw upon, not even unconsciously, that make the decisions. Because I'm on set, I'm also the only one here out of the 50 people that's going to be in the edit. So actually,
that's holding the baby, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So I can't get too carried away. Yeah. Everyone's smiling on set, but
and that's what people don't realise about. Sorry, just to butt in, but sometimes people get a little bit like crew, get a bit. Oh, the director's not so nice, or they're judging the director based that he should be a cheerful, happy person 100%. That goes. And I'm like, you don't realise the pressure they're under. This is their one day to get everything they need to really keep their career going. Because if they get it wrong, they might not have a career anymore. Do you know what I mean? So,
yeah, but you know what? I will combat that in the sense of mistakes are fine. It's too young. That is the pressure, yes. But actually, no, we all make mistakes constantly. And you're right, you do have to approach it in the sense of all or nothing. But actually, mistakes are so insanely valuable. It's crazy, annoying, you know, counterintuitive thing where without mistakes, you're not going to do anything. But also when you need to minimize mistakes and you want to be making new mistakes. That's the way I put it.
Yeah.
Don't make the same mistakes. I don't want to be making the same mistakes. Yeah. That's the thing. You can't afford to be making the same mistakes. Yeah. But if you can be making new mistakes, you're doing very well. Very well. And embrace and run into those new mistakes. So when I dip in and out, it's because my mind is in the edit. It's because my mind is in, you know, what we need. Because by the time you're on set, a lot of your job is done to some extent. All the planning, you've made a lot of decisions already. So it's like trying to park those decisions and be present and then just know when, okay, that wasn't part of the plan, but that looked sick. More of that. That was the plan. Actually, now I'm seeing it.
Not so good.
Not so good. I need to abandon it. And being present enough. Courageous enough and confident in your own ability enough to make those calls. All the planning in the world, you need to be present when you get there.
That's because very well put.
In your head, really everything looks great, everything fits. That's not reality. As a director, you're constantly in your head and reality, in your head, in reality. And that reality is on set, it's in the edit, it's...
people sometimes ask me what's my favourite part of the process, and I'm like the planning, because it's all perfect, because there's no friction in your head. And everything could be perfect, and then when you get going with it, it's just like putting out fires, dealing with problems.
Everything is just like, what is it?
The sun's in the wrong place, the building's not looking right.
All of it. Mike Tyson says it well, you know, everyone's got a plan until you're getting punched in the face. And being on set, you're getting punched in the face by reality, by the rain, by you know, if it's in commercials, by the agency, by the client, you know, by the cast member who doesn't want to do something, you know, by something that doesn't look good, blah blah blah. So it's just constantly being punched in the face. But as long as, you know, I try and, if I'm on set, there's a space in my brain. It's really interesting, and it's probably, if I had to say, one of my biggest skills is, I can listen to anything and everything. I can take in loads, but I don't necessarily take it in. It's like I've got an extra space here. So when I'm on set, there'll be times that I might have 3 people around me. And the AD, shout out Gabe, who worked on this, who's my homie, and he might be looking at me in this from here. He's an old friend, and he might be looking at me like, Sam, you've got these 3 shots, but I don't even need to tell you, that's not going to happen. I'm like, okay, cool. Listening, Gabe. I appreciate you telling me that. I know you're not saying it for the sake of it. Then I might have a producer on one side being like, is this how you wrote it? Blah 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 blah. You know, I'm just saying it here because, you know, this, that, and the other, and so I'm listening to that there. The DOP or the cast member will be then in this ear, not happy about something and blah blah blah. And so in my head, what I have to do in a really quick split second, I've got to be like, okay, cool. I've listened to your issue, I've listened to your issue, and I've listened to yours. I'm hearing you all. I've got to make a decision to be like, you know what? out of the three, this one's, and for the film, this guy's most important, or girl. So you know what I'm going to give you what you want. I'm not going to give you what you want, but in exchange, I'm going to give you something else. And then this person, I might have to somewhere in the middle, and I've got to do all of that, listen to all of their, because people get stressed. People love to and I'm quite good. For some reason, in stressful situations, I don't get stressed. I go kind of quiet and internal. So when I go internal, I've got everything that's playing out, and I can hear it all. I don't ever want to just, I listen to everyone, and I might be like, you know what? Okay, cool.
It's like Zidane talks about when he's on the pitch. He has that aerial.
I've never actually thought about that, but yeah, exactly.
You know that he gets that where where everyone is on the pitch without
everyone. It's nuts. Yeah. Like it's really, and I know the whole set. And it's funny because you mentioning about crew might be like, oh, directors this or directors that. I'm very fiercely protective over, the atmosphere and environment, but I'm also very internal. And you'll only hear me when you need to hear me. So there'll be times when, let's say, it's just after lunch, there's that slump, and you can feel the energy, and not just the energy of but you can feel someone might be complaining, somebody else is listening. And that's when I'll interject. That's when I might come and crack a few jokes. That's when I might be like, but then if it's good, you won't hear from me. I'll be just walking around, So it's really being attuned and aware to those movements and putting out fires, if possible, before they start. If not, as then when. And it's, again, just making sure everyone's happy. But everyone always can't be happy. So I might be in the circle, and Gabe, and again, my AD... he'll be like, we've got to be doing intent. I'm like, yeah, sure. He knows that, and I know, and I'm like, we're going to go over. And I don't do it lightly. I don't just ignore him. There's a lot of respect I have for him, and I'll listen to him, and I'll always, because his job is to make us deliver on time. Someone else's job is something else. My job is to deliver the film. All of these three things, I want to make him look good. I want to deliver on time, and I also want to make sure I'm staying true to this script thing that is out of my mind now. And I think the instinct, annoyingly, it comes from all the mistakes. I don't want to even take credit, but there's a weird middle magic place where you start to not just lean in on mistake avoidance, but I think there's a scale. On one hand, you're just avoiding mistakes, but then on the other hand, you're looking to create a space that for alchemy, a space where magic happens.
Yeah.
Like all the best things in the, it's between Kindred, I, Greenpeace, all the best moments, and maybe that might just be my favorite moments. They're not things you can plan, but they're things that I always were planning for.
Yeah.
So I knew in the storyboard it might look quite dry, but in my head I knew, okay, if my cast are good, if my camera, if the camera team are good, and everyone's feeling it, I know someone's going to come with something. Something's going to happen.
Yeah.
I know, and you know what? I learned a lot. I learned it myself. But then I also, being fortunate enough to work with Steve, I saw that's how his process is. And he would obviously word it in a very different way. But growing up, rewinding now, back to that magic, back to those moments where I'm like, what is this? Because I need to figure it out and do it. All my favourite directors, I've spent countless hours thinking, how in the world did they create that project? And not only just, but as a whole, to do that, I can't figure it out. And I think this for me is finding that space of you put a plan down, but also where the space is in that plan, that for things to happen that your wildest imagination can't fathom. But when you're all there on set, all present, that's it. Those are the moments, and everyone on set will be getting so gassed, going the other way, whereas I'm just like, okay, cool, next scene. But deep down I'm like, that was what I was hoping would happen. And every time I hope that would happen, and so luckily it keeps happening. But there is that world where you're like, it takes a lot of faith, because you're relying on stuff that's out of your hands. You're relying on an external, you're relying on stars to align. And it is alchemy in the sense you're relying on 2 + 2, but you're relying on it to equal 6, because on the paper 2 + 2 = 4, which works. The story still works, but you like in that calculation, the emotions aren't factored in, and I'm hoping 2 points for emotions that are going to be something so raw and real that when we all see it, we're like, okay, cool. But I also then have to stay so grounded and not get carried away, because I'm like, that was a great moment, but in the edit, you're starting from scratch again, and you're hoping that moment makes sense or fits or works. So there's this constant feeling of your instincts dipping in and out, but there's a belief in it where you have to let go, and that's my style of directing.
Well, that was beautifully put. That's one of the best summaries I've ever heard of someone explaining their process. And if that's not a 15-second cut, man, I don't know what will ever be. A 15-minute cut. Yeah, I don't know what ever will be a 15-minute cut. I mean, we can't put that on YouTube. I mean, on its own. That's standalone. So thank you.
I appreciate it. It's really amazing to be able to articulate.
Yeah, no, you do. It was so well articulated. So
amazing.
Yeah. So should we save the world now?
Yes. Let's go on to saving the world. Yeah.
So I'm going to just introduce it. A sharp climate crisis allegory, riffing on a Fleetwood Mac song produced by Lamas Park and Mother. Mother was a agency. Yeah. And it's touching on climate, mental health, racism, quite heavy themes. I mean, we've spoken a little bit, we sort of set this up in a way with the other 2 films anyway. So I was going to talk about activism versus catharsis kind of thing. But I think, you tell me how it came about.
So Greenpeace came about via Lamas Park and Steve. So Mother, Greenpeace is a client of Mother's. They've been working with for a long time. Is it Annie McVie?
Oh, yeah.
From Fleetwood Mac.
Yeah.
She gave the rights, or she essentially allowed Greenpeace, said, you can use this thing. And I wasn't involved in that convo. That was years before it ever came to me, but that's where it came from. Greenpeace, Fleetwood Mac. Here, this is a gift.
And they hadn't used it up until that point?
Not that I believe so. Yeah, don't quote me, but I think this was all part of the excitement of it, of the project. So Greenpeace went away and worked with Fraser T. Smith, who is one of the biggest producers in the British producers. Huge. He reworked that to make the track, and then Mother were like, okay, now we need some visuals to accompany it. They approached Steve at the time that, I was fortunate enough to be working with him, and, this job made perfect sense for me to do, in the sense of something Steve's passionate about, but naturally he's busy, and, this is maybe being a music video and a short film at its heart. It seems like it's in more my world. So fortunate enough that, cool, here's an opportunity.
So was it a filter down effect from Steve then, in
so
essence?
They approached Lamas Park.
Yeah.
Lamas would have replied, we're super interested. This is very down Steve's,
Yeah.
This is very in our world, let's say. So not just Steve or me, it's in our world. This is the current situation. Would you be interested in meeting Samona? They were like, yeah, we'd love to, which, I'll take. So we met. They explained the context of where they were at. And they didn't have, it was an open brief. They told me about how they'd got to where they were now. They said they wanted visuals, and it was really amazing because the team at Mother, they knew exactly what they wanted, but they were open. So they knew exactly what they want. They knew the impact they wanted the film to make, but they were open with how. So as we know with activism, charity world, it's a fascinating world which I've not, my work hasn't been steeped in it. It's something that I'm essentially, again, an outsider. And a lot of my projects, it's been nice in my commercial projects. It's interesting because, the stuff that I've done in fashion, I was approached because I wasn't a fashion director. Same thing with this. It was like I was coming at it from a place of being outside of that world. But it was something I cared deeply about. So that for me is such a sweet spot, because I wasn't sat at home thinking, okay, what does a Greenpeace ad look like? That didn't cross my mind once. If it did, I quickly put it out of my mind. Nor was I looking at anything about else in the charity sector, what kind of visuals, you know. So we sat down and they were like, they were very clear on the impact, and naturally there is a lot of places, it's a bit of a minefield, as you know, because of the way the conversation goes, because of the downfalls of the conversation, because of the aged way, because of the problematic ways, you know. It's not an easy space to navigate, because again, it's complex, which is super nice. That complexity is something that I've embraced in my own personal life. I care about climate change, I care about politics, but I don't have the answers, and I don't pretend to either. But it's things that I do think about in my downtime, that, like, don't we all? So I went away, just immersed myself in the world of what is it that we're facing. When I made the film, like, semi recently, whether it was that year or the year before, I'd seen a few of the like social political horrors were a big it was the Parasite had cleared up, Triangle of Sadness had done really well, you know. This is a genre that didn't have a name before it was now doing really well in, you know, the mainstream. But I was always very, very interested in stories that have a political undertone, like that's hugely, which you could argue all stories do, but it's, again, another long conversation. But that's a place that I really like, and so that was when my mind first took. I was like, let's do this. Feels like fiction. It feels like a real story needs to be told, and the feelings we want to elicit through this story, they're very clear on. And then that's where it led us to here. There was a few back and forth between myself and Steve. And, you know, working with Steve, I'm so fortunate, and, you know, everyone who has worked with him probably says the same thing in terms of his instinct is beyond sharp. Like it's insane. I've never seen anything like it. And being able to bounce off of somebody like that, and I don't even know if bounce off is the word, but yeah, being able to, like, this idea wouldn't be what it is without him and his input.
What kind of guidance, what was his input? Do you remember any key points?
I can't, again, he was involved in the inception, involved in the edit, you know, so it wasn't a case of there was just one specific involvement. But I remember the first time, it was the first time we'd properly met, I think. I want to say it was like the first time we'd met in passing, but it was the first time we'd, you know, really sat down together. And when I first was, I had 3 rough ideas that I was toying with, and so I presented all 3 to him. And as a person, the intensity, but his
so this script didn't come.
No,
you've seen the wrong film here.
No, this is the outro.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. This is like the ending bit.
Ah, right,
so,
right.
Yeah.
So the script didn't come from Mother.
No. So they came. It was an open script. They had a song.
Yeah.
And they had a clear.
So they hadn't written anything then.
Nothing, which was daunting to some, but I was so excited by the prospect.
I mean, people just should understand that's very unusual, right?
I've
never heard of that before,
very rare. Very rare. And again, Canon and Greenpeace dream projects, like dream. Like I couldn't dream it up. But weirdly, I by the time when it came, I had an appreciation and a hunger. So it wasn't daunting, because I think in some ways it could have been very daunting, being like, listen, we've got this huge song, this huge band with a huge history and very radical, like Greenpeace are about it when it comes to, you know. So they've got these huge things, but we've got nothing. We want to, how do we share this? And I was like, wow, okay, cool. So I went away, and I wasn't intimidated. I wasn't daunted, because for me, it was just like, I approached it as, I'm going to do what I would do. If they like it, great. If they don't, you know, I've stuck with what resonates with me. I didn't think I'd win it. I genuinely didn't think they'd go for it. I was, you know, I pushed it, and the pressure.
How did the idea initially come to you? Do you have? There
wasn't anything specific, because again, the context, the biggest box was Parasite, Triangles of Sadness. Political horror.
I can see elements of Triangles of Sadness in it for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So my starting point was, okay, cool. There is a space within fiction and storytelling which doesn't directly address something, but does very heavily. And so that was where I was at. So I looked at vehicles, I think, if I remember rightly. I looked at vehicles. So there was like 3 different ideas that I shared. I can't remember what they were now, but all of them were like a vehicle that could work as an analogy for this crazy situation going on. That was the starting point-ish. Steve, very much, you know, his input was huge in a number of places, in the sense of, you know, maybe there was times where I've been muddled or I'm like in this direction, and he's so unbelievably sensitive to ideas. And it might touch upon what you mentioned earlier about the antennae and the antennae for truth, I would almost describe Steve as. And so even just presenting them to him, the live feedback, it's a lot, but so insanely rich and challenging. So the idea, despite me having an open brief, which, as you put, is very rare, it went through a lot of scrutiny from, you know.
And it's an interesting dynamic, because you're presenting to someone who's a kind of hero of yours and has proved himself as a great filmmaker, and you want to please him, right?
Of course.
But at the same time, you want to stay the author of your idea as well,
100%.
Right?
And I think in that period of my life, so when the relationship first started, as I said, I've got a feature film with them. I was quite good at keeping my feet on the floor, because I hadn't planned this, I hadn't dreamt of this, but I dreamt of making art through film. That was always the goal. And so that heading for that goal had meant this is where I ended up along the way. And I just said to myself, you know what, I was just like, you know what, me and him are peers now. And I cannot get lost into being awestruck as much as I want to, even still to today, years later. I still want to be like, oh my gosh, you know, can I be on set with you? All of those questions.
It's not useful for the process at that point.
It's not useful for the process. And for me as a director, I think I was quite aware of how the pitfalls of potentially getting lost in his aura and the gravitational field, because it's huge. But I said to myself, you know what, I'm here because through merit. And this isn't it's not a family friend or anything like that. It's very much I'm here through merit. So if I'm here through merit, I need to we're peers now. We'll talk like me and you, or talk like anyone. And so I grounded myself quite early. And of course, when I'm talking to friends and family, I'm saying it blasé, being like mad, right? And we make a joke of it. So I'm not just like pretending it's normal, because it's not. It's insane. But at the same time, the insanity of it doesn't serve me. So let me just keep my feet on the floor. And with this one, I was so fortunate that naturally I'm into politics, I'm into climate change. I can see the pitfalls, I can see the dire need, but I can also see the bad side of the industry, and I can also see how it can become judgmental or you know, there's a lot. It's a big intersection. Climate change. It's a big conversation.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is you try and help. You try and help a certain country or whatever, and then you realise that the policies you're implemented actually make things worse.
It's complex,
and so it's the complexity.
It's complex, and owning that complexity is the important start for us all. And also, the social politics behind climate change are huge, and it can also become quite self-righteous quite quickly. You know, I'm sure me and you are both wearing plastic. We've both done. You know, it's not about this finger pointing, and so all of these things, A, personally were in and around my mind, but B, Greenpeace and Mother were also very on it. So even though the brief was open, it was very tight. We knew exactly the chord we wanted to strike. We knew exactly what we didn't want to do. We knew where we wanted to push it. Greenpeace are like, we've got a full lawyer team, so let's push it. If we're not pushing it, when we approach what we do, if we're not pushing it, then we're not going hard enough. And we're like, the reason we have a law team is to just defend.
You have to go up to the edge of what's...
go past the edge.
Right.
Because then the law team will defend us. Like, no, we want to push it. Let's use that. That's their ethos. And to see that, I was like, okay, are you sure? But they meant it.
Yeah.
So then me going away with all of that was such an amazing place to be. So I pushed it. I genuinely didn't think, and obviously it wasn't a single bid. There were other people pitching, one or two other directors. So I was just like, yes, I want to impress Steve, but I want to remain true to me. And it felt like the perfect brief. It's rare, but it was the perfect brief because they knew exactly what they wanted. And it was my job as a storyteller to write and create a story that serves that. So yeah, a couple back and forths between Lamas internally, Steve scrutinizing, interrogating, pushing the idea. So yeah, the first few things, there was a broader, here's some vehicles that could be good analogies. One was like a car. I forget what it was, not breaking down, but I think I had one where it was a car, and I had this idea of get a young kid just behind a wheel and it just looks like it's rolling away. And everyone's just watching it for 3 minutes to be like, this is gonna, car crash come in. And again, whatever, there was a few. And so we ended up on a party. That was the thing. That was the direction. That was we could split. I'm sure you may have seen the behind the scenes, but you've got the front of house, you've got the back of house, you've got the staff, you've got the children, and Greta Thunberg. There was all of these things that were really synonymous with the conversations around climate change, and I was able to just, in this space of a party, represent all of these, and then in the narrative, let what plays out in the party represent and make a comment on where we're currently at. So yeah, that was kind of the history of Greenpeace. So that's how the birth of it. That's where it came from, inception.
So let's talk a little bit about the production a bit. So it's shot it's a set build. So, yeah. But the kitchen's a real kitchen or not?
No, it's a set build.
Kitchen's a set build as well?
Yes. And it was connected, so it was physically one next to the other. Again, have to shout out the team on this because everybody absolutely smashed it.
Yeah.
And it's been, talking about my career progression. In your 20s, in the first, let's say 5 to 10 years of your career, and this changes, but being very real from the first time you decide you want to make a film, you want to be a filmmaker, to where I'm at now. The first 10 years is just, you're walking around in the dark, you and your friends are making stuff, there's no real scale or aspiration. You're just doing whatever you can when you can. Overnight, you get to this point, you look around, you're like, I'm meeting people who have been doing the same thing, but individually in solitude or with their people and their people. So really fortunate, as you said, I'm working with Lamas Park and Steve McQueen, and now I've got, at this point, now all of a sudden you've got people behind you, and you can pull in favors, or when people see the name of, all of a sudden they're like, yeah, we're in. And so it's like the trust level builds kind of almost exponentially. So with Greenpeace, every single person, the producer, the EPs, the DOPs, the set.
Who was the DOP on this?
DOP was Annika Summerson. She shot, which I still haven't seen, funnily enough, but she shot Baby Reindeer.
Oh yeah,
that's her. Not, I don't think it's her biggest, but that's one of her most notable pieces of work. But coming up, I looked up to the people in her ilk, and then to have the opportunity to work with them, I'm like, this is crazy. I feel so spoiled. But production designer Jade Adiemi did the set build. Costume was I need to remember this name now. There's no reason why I've forgotten, but it's out of mind, out of sight.
We can put it up on the screen later.
Costume designer, she's a director herself at Love Song. Her name is Verity. Verity smashed it. But just everybody really just, ran away with it.
So you cast, talk us through the casting process first, and then we'll get into the actual production.
So the casting process on a few levels, because Tomorrow's Warriors, who are a music collective, a music youth service, I'm sure that's not how they describe themselves, but every big jazz act, I know we spoke a lot about jazz earlier, vast majority of jazz acts in the UK jazz scene came through Tomorrow's Warriors. It's a non-profit, I think, but it's basically like a youth club, but for jazz. some of the most ridiculously talented musicians you'll ever see.
I've heard of them actually. Yeah.
So they were involved in the music production with Fraser. So once we penned the idea, we knew the band wanted to feature. So that was the band. Separate to that, Greenpeace have a black book of notable celebrities or figures who are, really big part of their world and what they do. And so they're like, listen, we'll put the call out. Like, it's not about us, we're going to, beg, borrow and steal to get the most impact possible. So Will Poulter, he's a close friend of Greenpeace, and very generously, he was on crutches at the time. He was literally, came down and featured. Coralie again did the casting, and she was the casting director, and there was a lot of conversations because of, we wanted to throw a party, but naturally resources mean you can only afford X amount. So you want to fill the space, but you also need to try and figure out what that actually looks like through the style of how we're shooting it. Not only do we want to fill the space, but the casting decisions are also comments on the broader climate conversation. So, within it, we didn't want to point fingers and blame anyone too specifically, but we did want to make some comments. So there's that towing that line of, okay, the class, the race, the age, the sex, everything about every character had to be considered, because we're saying something here, whether we like it or not, we are saying something. So we kind of lent into celebrating the young climate activists, and especially I think in the last 10 years, and it's funny because Greta is now not in the news as much as she used to be, which is because she started to point the finger at the exact problem, and annoyingly, when you point the finger at the problem, they don't often like that, and then the spotlight begins to change. And so Greta, great example of, she was at the forefront of the conversation for very, very good reasons, because I don't know when, but we're talking a teenager. She's still at school, and we're having kids say, nah, guys, this is not, I want a future. So this needs to change, because me giving up everything to protest is because there will be nothing left anyway. So it's so insanely inspiring to see that. So we were like, let's celebrate the children with this, because me as a millennial, you could argue to say, we not part of the problem, because I think that's problematic, making it about
a generation to blame kind of thing.
Yeah, putting it on personal people. Like, there's a lot of, as you said, it's a minefield, but I felt inspired by the young children, whether that's through Tomorrow Warriors or whether that's through Greta and a lot of the other activists whose names I should know, but who are at the forefront in every corner of the world, in the developing world, where they're seeing the impacts live. So we really wanted to celebrate them for good reason. So we were like, okay, cool, let's get them as the band and staff. Like, it makes a lot of sense. Kitchen staff, there's older supervisors who are cracking the whip to represent, the middle management, the people who, through maybe no fault of their own, are just are
part of the system, that's
products of the system, products of the environment, because the system is all consuming. We're all part of the system to extent, but some people, defend the system, perpetuate the darker sides of the system. Like, there's a lot of lines, there's a lot of layers to this thing. And so, casting the children was the reasoning behind it. And then the actual party goers, we're all party goers. I'm at the party, you're at the party, everyone's at the party, So that was a case of, hey, let's make it inclusive. Let's make it of people of all ages, of all types of demographics. Let's hint at various different classes.
But it looked privileged. The party guys looked privileged, right?
We're me and you, our privilege means we've got the invite. And that's something again we can unpack. But strangely enough, I've been unpacking that since Kindred, the privilege that I have to be part of this party. So if I'm at this party, then how do I use this privilege, I guess? So anyway, with the actual cast, it was like, cool, let's make it inclusive. We don't want to we could have made certain decisions which pointed fingers even more directly, but we're part of it. And it's so incredible to be on the inside and see that from Greenpeace, because again, I don't know the charity world, I'm not in it, I don't have this, but I know you've got different you've got a scale of different charities, some charities that are problematic, some charities that actually don't really go for the heart of the problem, or some charities that you're like, wait a minute, you're getting paid how much, and how much is going to the thing there's a lot of politics when it comes to with charities. But to see and meet the people on the inside at Greenpeace, I was so unbelievably inspired. Like, it was like, okay, cool. These people have committed their lives to protecting the environment and the future of humanity. So the respect was so much, but they were part of all of these conversations, which was incredible to be on a job shooting a commercial video short film, and the questions the interrogation is about, okay, but why though? Okay, but why? So not a single decision I made in here wasn't scrutinized by Steve, then by Mother, then by Greenpeace. And because all of us were aiming for the exact same goal, it was such a beautiful experience and a beautiful process. So everybody from the DP to the costume to the set designer, we're all having the same conversations. And I'm so welcoming in that and being like, no, challenge me. Ask me the whys, ask me the hows, ask me if really, ask me if, okay, I think that's what you meant, but I'm reading this, or I see it as that. So the process was really, really special and so collaborative on every level.
Sorry.
Not at all.
Sorry.
No, not at all.
Yeah. Process collaborative and special. So could we move on to the actual production?
Yeah.
So, like you said, it's a set. Do you remember where the studio was? Was it Central? Was it a London studio?
Yeah, it was West London studio. It was opposite.
Was it Black Island or something?
Maybe. I don't want to say yes in case it was someone else, but
and it was it two separate studios? One studio was a kitchen, one studio was
no, they were actually connected.
Studio,
yeah,
right.
So it was a big studio. They were both connected. I think they built it in a day or so. We had the build and pre-light, then 2 days shooting on set.
And how many cameras were you running?
2 cameras. There was moments where they were running simultaneously, but most of it was just single camera. Yeah, just purely because the zoom lens was a big one, and then Steadicam.
So the idea was to hold back and to pick out the moments that were kind of feeling authentic to you.
Yeah, you know what was nice, and our entire approach for this was the party gets out of hand. And for me, and pretty much everybody involved, which was quite nice, I kind of came up with this, not a traffic light system, but that was a 1 to 5. So there was an intensity of 1 to 5. So the party starts at 1 and it gets to 5.
Yeah.
And that was through performance, that was through costume, that was through the build.
Yeah.
And it starts at 1, it's all pristine in order.
Yeah.
And then it dips into chaos.
Yeah.
5 is, I said to everyone, 5, whatever in your head is
it's
the most
bedlam.
chaotic you can think, is that. And it was funny because we almost teased it, because we storyboarded it all, and every frame I knew an intensity. So there was an action plus an intensity of that action. So we kind of teased it and ticked off the storyboard, but like we mentioned earlier, always looking out for those magic moments. So yes, there was things specific, but...
And would you sometimes see something that happened and go, oh, could you repeat that and we'll get a different
angle? It was the cast, there was like 20, 30 maybe. I cannot believe how much they gave for the project. Cannot believe it. There was times when the camera would be in a corner, handheld, looking at something direct, but everybody was on job. I'd be holding the monitor, looking at the direction, and I'd look behind me and I'd see something and just be like, an old man an older man in his 60s, 70s rolling around on the floor with his top off. And I didn't give him that direction. I didn't, you know what I mean? And that wasn't even, the camera wasn't even on him, but they were all so invested. And I was just be on sound. I'd be like, but I had to stay grounded and concentrate on the frame that we were getting at that point. Then I might return and say, okay, cool, let's go back to that. Let's, you know.
So the DOP lit the whole room?
Lit the whole space,
so it's a free sort of
pretty, not 360. We didn't. There was only 3 walls.
Yeah.
So the back wall was all the crew were there.
Yeah.
But we could go.
Yeah.
It's not 360, but
180
maybe.
Yeah,
180. Exactly. So we had a lot of movement, but we didn't have freedom of movement.
Yeah.
And again, because I think there was maybe 30. I can't remember the exact number of. There was a lot of cast, but also you start to know, especially when time's passing quite quickly, those things you had to really keep into consideration. But yeah, the cast, I really built characters, and that was the brief with all the cast. Everyone knew.
So when you were looking at the pictures of the cast, and you were thinking, I think this should be a certain kind of character, and then wardrobe, and it was
exactly. It was all holistic. So we knew no decisions lived alone. It was about holistically, okay, have we got too many this, too many that, is this now, because everything said something, as I said. So we had holistically whatever, okay, 25 spaces we got to fill. I kind of was really, because of there was background of, you know, naturally you can see the people in the suits represent the CEOs. So everybody, there was already groups of, in that 30 spaces, we knew the groups. I forget the maths, but we literally did it quite mathematically. Okay. When
you say it's 30, do you say 30 spaces or 30 faces?
Either one, spaces or faces. Yeah, we had 30
kind of
spots,
30 spots
to fill. So because again, we didn't have all the money in the world.
So 30 kind of spots in the space, and shots that you knew that would.
More a case of when we wrote the story.
Did you have a storyboard at this point?
It was all quick, so I don't know if exactly at that point, but I knew through all the convos with Greenpeace and Mother, let's say I said to my producer George, I was like, how many people can we afford? It came from that.
Yeah.
He might have said 30. It might have been more, it might have been less. I can't quite, but it was around that. So I was like, okay, we can afford 30, and so we need to be well-rounded. So within that 30, okay, 6 are going to be over this age and look like this, look like politicians, let's just say. Okay, cool. 6 are going to be, I knew dance, movement was quite important, especially when it gets to more bizarre areas. So
I mean, I can't get that, the guy in the white shirt at the end, that dance for me. I mean,
he was one of the 6, if it was 6. And again, I waited on the day to realise, okay, who I'm going to put on the spot here. It wasn't, none of them knew exactly what they were going to, who's going to do what. No, exactly. But they all gave their all. I couldn't get over the talent. I couldn't get over the belief they gave in me and my idea. Because as I said, they all, with the 30, I might have had, okay, we need 6 politician types. And it was a type. We all knew it was a CEO, a politician or whatever. Suits, we need 6 suits. We might have 6 who are like, I'm just making this up, this isn't what it was. 6 might be influencer types. 6 might be, I actually can't remember, but every character was already pre-decided. So then when the cast came back, when the cast call came back, we would then place people.
Yeah.
And then step back and say, okay, is that balance work? Or,
it's just like an ensemble cast, and
cast,
working out the
hitting
elements.
specific beats, because we had a script. We probably had the storyboard, but we had a script. So I knew the script had these types of people, and I knew, okay, we could afford X amount. So it was all about trying to figure out how and what is the most effective, efficient way for the story. So every decision was really made through what we had at our disposal. Do you know? It was, which I think is an underrated space, which I'll quickly touch upon, because I'm like, as an emerging young filmmaker, you always think, oh man, I can't wait to afford this. I can't wait to afford that. I can't wait to be able to shoot whether that's on film, with a Steadicam, with a techno crane, there's always something that you wish you could afford. That never changes, and it's so important to embrace that. You're never going to have enough, and I look at it in a way which is quite nice, and I've had with friends where I'm like, if you give me £500 now, I'm going to plan a film that should cost £2,000, and I'm going to, because I'll be aspiring, and even if I fail and make it look like £1,000, I've doubled it. And every time I pick up a camera or a project, I'm like, I should always be pushing for more than I've got. That space is a really important space to not actually just talk badly about. You should never have enough time, never have enough money. You should never have enough resources. If you do, then you're not maybe pushing and aspiring enough more. I've heard stories of people I look up to, heroes, on budgets of I don't even know how many numbers, but crazy budgets, it's not having enough. The first time I heard that, I was almost a bit rocked, but then I actually been like, that's the point. If you're not pushing to something that's unrealistic, you're not pushing hard enough. And I think when you fail in that space, you fail and you still over deliver way more than.
Yeah, I think I think what's important with when you have kind of cost controlling and budgets is that whatever the decision's made, you want those to end up on screen, right? That's there's a lot of waste in our industry.
A lot of waste.
And it's a real shame when it doesn't end up on the screen,
big time.
That's the best.
It's a shame.
Money is the money.
And sometimes it's out of your hand or things in your mind in the edit, you're like, cool. But I think there's something to be said about never having enough, whatever it is, and embracing that and being okay that you're aspiring in that space. Like, it's a good place to be in. I forget why I got onto that, but
let's just talk about camera movement.
Yes,
because, you had your long lens. Presumably the long lens was on a dolly.
Yep.
Yeah. So you're wheeling a dolly around with your long lens, and you're zooming in to find little moments.
Yep.
And then you have your Steadicam as your second unit with a camera that you sort of when you need a specific move.
Yep.
Then you just because you've worked a fair bit with Steadicam before, haven't you? With Kindred, that was a fair bit of Steadicam, was that?
No?
Was that gimbal? Some kind of gimbal? I'm trying.
No,
was 16mm? Was it handheld then?
All handheld.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Okay, so
actually, no. Sorry, gimbal. I'll have to think back and rewatch it. But Tom Elliott, the DOP for that, he definitely has a gimbal, but I don't think we used it.
Right.
Underwater housing and handheld.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if there was a specific scene. A lot of sticks as well with.
Yeah. Oh no, you know the one I'm thinking of.
What are you thinking?
Definitely Steadicam. Sorry, I got confused.
The Microsoft.
No, it's the it's Gucci place.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
That was all Steadicam.
Yeah.
Yeah. So no, I'm quite open with my approach. I like to storyboard and then just decide what's best when. I think you can fall into the trap of wanting to use things just because you can, or just because it's afforded. But with this, the main one, we played around with frame rates, shot a few. Don't recall.
This is shot digitally, right?
All digital.
Yeah. Do you remember what camera you shot on?
You know what? It's good because I'm not too hands-on when it comes to camera.
Yeah.
I know what I want in terms of the outcome, but the details.
Let the DOP decide
that.
That's I like that. When I'm working with directors, I'm like, tell me what you want to get, and then let me work out how to get there.
I think I found
Yeah.
DPs respond better to that, and it's all about trust for me.
Yeah.
And I trust everyone I work with, and I know that my knowledge is pretty small. When I'll technically, exactly. It's not too small. Don't get me wrong. It's there.
Well,
but
you want to focus on what you're focusing on.
Story.
I
like to even push my DPs when they want something. I'm like, okay, why? Yeah. Talk me through which part of the why
how
you
does
think
it benefit the story.
Exactly, especially because
because we can be into our toys a bit.
Exactly, and it's curious.
It's
100%, and it's not always an attack. It's sometimes just curiosity. I'm like, tell me more.
It's good to learn.
Big time.
So do you want to talk us through a little bit the sort of the symbolic kind of an allegory elements, like the water, the ice, the fire, and how kind of you sort of wanted to sort of insert those into the story? I
think from when we started and initially was putting ideas together, naturally everything in film means something. I like to try and imbue meaning in everything possible. I think it might be I was reading this recently, but like Chekhov's gun is a big concept where if you have a prop in the start, Chekhov goes back to theatre, I believe. If you have an empty glass, it's there for a reason.
Yeah, at some point it should come back. The story,
exactly. So I try to make as many details as possible mean something or to come back. And so with this, food and excess was a big thing, because I think consumption, as we know, is quite a big factor that influences the climate conversation. Food and so that's food and drink. Weather is very elemental. Fire, water, super easy. So that was part of it. So back to when we first were coming up with the ideas, I looked at a vehicle or a device, and then what then things mean through that lens of that device. And so a party is great because food and drink is natural to the party.
Yeah.
Party is great because you need staff. Party is great because it can get out of hand, and we all know how and why. We've all been to those. So a party, once that landed, it wasn't perfect and straight, didn't come out perfect, but once it landed, it grew and grew and grew, and it was a nice it just was, we all could realize, this is a really good allegory, because we can add more and more and more and more. So the ice sculpture was just one of those ones where I was just like throwing a spanner at my producer, and I was like, you know what would be good?
Yeah.
You know what would be so extra?
Well, it makes so much sense. Right?
It makes so much sense. And again, none of it I knew for sure if we could afford it. It was really, every decision was holistic, which I think it'd be interesting to hear your thoughts, but it's really, the experience when I'm on films and jobs that are like everybody's involved, and it's a holistic thing of being like, okay, if you want Steadicam, that means we don't get this. Which one do we want more? And it's not about that we're all in it together. It's not about, I'm prioritizing the DP over this person, or it's listen guys, here's the story. What's the best way to tell the story from everybody? And then decisions are just different now, because you're not fighting. It's more a case of like, okay, cool. What do you want? And what do we want? Which one do we think is more valuable to the goal? And so, I think it was really nice environment, because we pushed everyone. Everyone got stretched, but everyone felt trusted and respected. So in every conversation that we're going in, no, not everyone got what they want. I didn't get everything that I wanted. So ice was one thing I just asked for. And we were like, okay, let's see. Let's keep pushing. Let's move forward. And then, production team managed to make it work.
And how has this been received by what's been the general kind of?
It was received really good. Funnily enough, it was meant to air at Glastonbury.
Really? Huh.
And that was the biggest deadline. That was the biggest thing. That was the biggest whatever. And it didn't end up showing.
Why is that?
Take that as you will.
Huh.
So obviously I was annoyed, because that would have been amazing.
Yeah.
But weirdly, I was also quite proud that, someone don't like it that much, or it's upset somebody enough.
Yeah. The lawyers got involved.
Someone
Possibly,
got involved.
Yeah.
It wasn't the lawyers. It was someone on the Glastonbury team, which, right now, this day, I think it's Glastonbury in a few weeks. And already this year, there's a few contentious topics, which we're going to see coming into it. And, Glastonbury's history is about protest.
Right.
So it was a perfect place for it to air.
Yeah.
It didn't end up airing.
Yeah.
I was a bit annoyed, but I was actually also quite glad, because that meant
it made hit a corpus.
It made someone feeling comfortable, which I'll take that.
Yeah.
So it got received really, really well. Like, when you make these things, your goals for all of this thing, your goals for these kinds of projects, everyone has a different goal. I achieved what I wanted to, in the sense of I managed to reframe the climate discussion in an engaging story. That was my goal.
Yeah. And without being too preachy, and with sort of surrealist elements and allegories that are more subtle,
and it's complex.
Yeah,
so
more complex, and I like that. That's a definite win.
I'm glad I managed to whittle down something that's very complex that I don't even have a full picture of, in something that can touch people.
Because you can't see, it's shades of grey. You can't quite see who the villains are and who
100%.
who the heroes are.
100%.
It's kind of, it's a bit like,
It's great. And that's for me the best, not even the best. Everything, when you look back at Kindred, the migrant crisis, INO Inner South, Greenpeace, climate change, you know, there's a few long form projects that I'm working on. They all try, not tackle, but they all approach complex topics, great topics that you like are on the, you're really on the fence about. And if you are on one side, I'll give you an argument that will, you know, sway you. So the ones that are like, oh, that's really what draws me in my normal life when I'm at home just staring at the ceiling. I'm fortunate.
The older I get, the less sure I get of my views on things, right? I'm always, and
100%.
I'm quite surprised how the
much
more knowledge you get, the more complicated and the more frustrating a subject
it's
becomes.
Frustrating.
And human nature, we don't like that. We like clear narratives. We like things to be simple. We like to take a side. We like to have a strong opinion.
100%.
But then when you get into it,
and you can argue that the problems come in humanity when you oversimplify things and don't embrace the complexity.
I mean, the world we're living in at the moment is that something that sounds right, but when it's implemented and it has the wrong result,
100%.
You know, politicians are the few people that don't get judged on. If you build a bridge and the bridge collapses, as a bridge builder, you never get to build another bridge, 100%. Right? Politicians get things wrong all the time, and then the world moves on. The news channels move on. News channels get things wrong all the time, and then the next day it's a new news, so it gets forgiven without any consequence, and that's a problem. I think
it's a problem, and their job is to simplify very complex issues. We need to stop doing that. We need to stop doing that. Like, I won't get too political, but
well, let's go completely political and not really political. Let's take a different track now, and let's end. I'd like to have some time to talk about future projects, plans, a bit of summing up, some advice to young directors. But before we do that, how long are we doing time wise?
3 hours.
Oh, we're 3 hours now. Okay, so let's. All right, so I think we'll just do one more then.
Ricky, what's the time now?
10 minutes past 6.
10 minutes past 6.
That is flown by.
Wow.
We started recording at 3.
Wow.
I've not. Yeah, that is absolutely.
That's insane.
Flown by.
Yeah.
Jeez, in a good way, but yeah.
Cool. Can we just do a quick Gucci
Of
place in the
course.
sun and then sum up? Sorry. Yeah. Sorry.
Not sorry, but
No.
like,
I mean, yeah. Normally I get the kind of signs from the
light.
Well, no, the signs from the guys, because when they get over 2 hours, I think, I've got to fucking edit this.
As if we've been talking for free. That's wild. I think we stopped for a lot of those.
Yeah,
Probably about 15 minutes altogether.
Damn.
Yeah. But you've been doing some great breakdowns of the director, the role. Yeah, honestly.
I appreciate.
This is one of our best ones. I think.
Damn.
I honestly think that.
No, I appreciate that.
All right, so let's get Gucci up. Gucci, your place. Oh, here we go. Nice. So this is because obviously you started off a videographer doing your own producing, and then you went to
producing, then
I was thinking production company. So you went to Radical
Media. So my first production company was Radical Media.
Was this made with Radical Media?
No, this wasn't made with a production company. This was direct with the agency, essentially.
Right. So Lammas Park and Radical Media, how does that work together? Were you at Radical Media when Lammas Park approached
So
you?
no, my journey is for commercials. Radical's my first. Then I spent a very brief time, I think I ended up on the website, it was brief, with Agile Films. Then after Agile Films, I went to Lammas Park.
Right.
And then after Lammas Park commercially, I went to Prodco, which is I literally announced last week that we agreed at a year. It's been Prodco. So I mean, being an outsider, which goes back to earlier, it's been hard to find a home and for me that was just about what do I want from it. There's a lot of, I think it gets blown out of proportion being signed. Throughout your 20s, it's this thing of my next goal is to get signed as a director. Excuse me. I think that gets blown, too much emphasis gets put on just being signed. like it's too broad. It's like being signed, but what do you want really? Especially for emerging directors, because I think you need to figure out what films that you want to make, and then you need to figure out and identify a home which you feel will serve that.
Yeah.
And if you've not asked the first question, I think you can almost be running blind, just looking to be signed, because once it gets signed, it'll be fine. Once it gets signed, I'll get in jobs. That's not how it works. I think in my experience, it's been, okay, I need to figure out what stories that I want to tell. Then I need to figure out and surround myself by the people who align with that. So I've learned a lot of interesting lessons, but like all my early career, most of my progress would happen just me out and about, hustling and looking for those opportunities. Prodco, so unbelievably happy to be there right now. And I think I can appreciate it through my journey. If I was, let's say, from Rewind,
They got a fantastic roster, man.
incredible
I mean,
team, but being inside of it, I can see why. Like so many of their directors, I've seen their work just individually, separately, just through their work. I didn't know the name, but I was like, wow, that thing stopped me in my track. Let alone Ian himself, whose name I was hearing when I was first getting into the industry. And
he's also one of the most generous, supportive guys. I mean, he's always, every time I speak to Ian, I ask him about other directors, and he's always just really just so on top of wanting to share the emerging talent. I mean,
100%. And
yeah, it's incredible for that.
I'm so fortunate to be a recipient of that. But same, I'll be talking to young directors, and they'll be like, "Oh my god, no way, yeah, you're signing for Prodco. Oh man, I was messaging Ian the other day, and he replied," and that's not unusual. And
when I first started this podcast, I did a few recordings of people I knew from the industry, and then when I went out there properly to the industry without anyone knowing me, I tried all the A-listers. Ian was one of the few to come back to me straight away, and he goes, "Oh, we got the same name. Let's do it." And he was just up for it straight away, and it was amazing. Actually,
when I met him, I was in conversations. I was in a transition. I was looking for a new commercial company, and I was in a lot of conversations and hearing some good things, some not so good things, some just hearing loads. And there was a few offers that I was like, oh, this is a very good offer, but something, soon as I sat down with Ian, and I didn't know him prior, man, he just said so many things that was just like, and that's it. Generous is a word I'd use with him. He was so generous with his experience and his...
It's like he has his confidence, and he's not threatened by anyone else's talent. He wants to nurture, really genuinely 100%. Wants to nurture other people's 100%. Talent.
100%. And that's I can only hope and dream that's the reputation that I have, because I'm like, it can get quite competitive in our industry across the board, with Instagram, with all of it, being freelance, the fact of the model of we all come together and we'll go apart, we all come together, we go apart. There's a lot of times in between where it can be like, why does this person not want to work with me again? Or why is this not brand? Yeah. There's so many of it. You really
touched on actually a lot of the sort of mental strain of a freelance career, because it is very unnatural as a human. Like we're kind of tribal creatures, and we make these very kind of sort of delicate kind of temporary tribal connections, and then we break them. And there's never an explanation. If people don't come back to you, it's always silence. It's always ghosting.
And you're sat in your head.
Yeah, and it can really erode your sense of self, your sense of trust.
You ragged. So that probably again was an influence with I&I. We've been like, your brain can run you ragged, and it is add to that working in a creative field where we're all putting our blood, sweat and tears into it. And we're all quite
sensitive characters, because in order to be creative you have to be sensitive.
Yeah. Has to be. Yeah. So I think I love when I meet anybody, but other directors, let alone Ian Ponce-Jules, who again, goes without saying his reputation and his body of work. To meet someone like that and then to be so generous and chill and open and just want to share and nurture, it's mind-blowing. So straight away I was like, okay, yeah, this is it. Like, and this has been years of me trying to find a home. And again, if it's advice, if I was to give advice to anyone looking to be signed, I'd be like, don't be in a rush. There's a lot to be said about being a freelance director. One.
Well, that's Ian. That's Ian's kind of path in a way. Is doing music videos for too long. He thought he'd never make it into commercials, and when he finally did get into commercials, he did it on his terms. So there's, and Seb Edwards, a director I worked with in the past.
Yeah, I know Seb. I know of his work.
Yeah, he took a long. I remember at the beginning of his career, he wasn't taking any job just to make money, and he needed the money at the time. But he refused to do that. And I was speaking to Steve Annis recently. Steve Annis came on the podcast. The one thing that all of I think the really successful artists have in common is that they don't compromise the art. They let the money follow the art, and they just go for the art first.
And that I can personally attest to being in my early 20s, seeing an interview with Steve McQueen and him saying something along those lines. And I remember so vividly being like, oh, that's easy for you to say. Like, I remember so vividly not understanding. It took pre me meeting him, but it took a good part of 10 years, and then the penny dropped, and I was like, yeah, that's a big lesson, and that's hard. When you don't get it, you don't get it. Once you get it, you get it. And it's hard to explain.
Yeah.
But I remember, some decisions that I've made through choice, but others through lack of choice. But don't be in a rush to sign. Yeah. Like, it doesn't change anything. Figure out what you want first.
Figure out your voice.
Then find out who's going to serve that.
Yeah.
If you think signing is then going to allow you to find it, it's backwards.
Yeah, it's backwards.
It's about take your time, figure out what it is that you want to do, Tal, and then the right people will fall out the sky because you're so clear on what you want.
That's good advice. Yeah.
Like, I'm sitting here thinking, like, Ian Pons Jules fell out of the sky relatively. Steve McQueen fell out of the sky, and there's countless others who I could mention have been so generous, where I'm like, that's nuts. I could have sat at home and been like, oh my God, I'm desperate to work with Steve and I need to make a plan to get me there. And it would have got me there, I'm sure. But I wouldn't have got out of it what I needed, or it wouldn't have been from the right terms. But instead, I spent my 20s doing me. And then the people who aligned somehow gravitated towards me. And so, it's a hard one to make sense of until you've gone through it. But be so stubborn with what you want. Figure out what you want and then be stubborn with it. That's it. Forget trying to be signed. Forget chasing all of that stuff. All of that comes when it's time, when the time's right.
Good. Now we got Gucci playing in the background.
Yes.
A few quick words on
please,
that, and then we'll talk about your sci-fi and the future. We'll sum up.
Sweet.
We'll just sum it all
up. Of course. And,
I like the American man, British woman voice. I have to say. Was that a choice that was there from the early on?
I'd have to go back and remember, but no.
I just thought you don't hear that often when you hear a woman, a female English actor and a male,
an American, and I think we went through same thing with always the casting. It's the story and who fits, or what's the best combination. This film was touching upon Afrofuturism ideas, and I think Afrofuturism transcends borders. It's not just about the black experience in the UK or the black experience in America or the black experience on the continent or in the Caribbean.
I know it through music, but
and so I think Afrofuturism is almost like a post conversation of afterwards. What is your
for the viewers at home, how would you sum up what Afrofuturism is?
I've not thought about Afrofuturism specifically, but I think Afrofuturism is imagining a future. It's creating the future in terms of live. It's saying, okay, cool, I'm going to take my creativity, which is often birthed out of, pain, but it's not about the pain, it's about the creativity, and it's about using that creativity to create the future in front of you, and that's in the most wild directions and ways. So that for me is what Afrofuturism. I know there's a lot of more theoretical definitions, but mine is about saying, imagining a future in the most wild ways that we can.
well, I mean, taking pain and forging that into joy or into some form of peace, as that's the human experience, and that's very international, very universal.
100%.
Yeah. So that's
huge. And I think, you know, the Afrofuture side of it is the fact of is the collective experience, and I agree. You know, it's broader than that. Whereas I think Afrofuturism almost fences in this thing of we all have a collective the collective black experience, and you know, you could probably tie a line to every genre, whether it's jazz, whether it's you know, loads of different genres within music, about how oppressive environments or oppressive conditions have birthed these things. And I agree, you don't need the oppression is almost separate in the sense of the connection, the deep connection which we draw upon to turn that, to do that out, to alchemize pain into incredible art movements. It can go deeper than that. We can go further than that. We are inherently have a, you know, we inherently have a connection to this source. That means when we can, like alchemy, we spoke about it earlier, isn't it? Alchemy is the perfect thing of, we can create something from nothing. It can be nothing. And yeah, that for me is what Afrofuturism is, or my view on it.
And so, and was this part of the brief then? It's like,
yeah.
How did Gucci approach you?
Again, it's interesting because I love the way you're asking about the certain briefs, because so much of my journey has just been non-conventional. Like very few of my projects have been this feeling of, I'm at a production company, an agency sends a brief, I pitch on the briefs, win the project, we shoot it. It's always, everything's just been, especially through my 20s. So this was approached, I'd already done a film for Gucci, which was part of another project that they did. So I must have just, the fortune of social media, I was in their mind. And so this came, and it was part of Gucci's sustainability collection, which was fascinating. And same thing as I mentioned earlier, I worked in, you know, charity space, but as an outsider. I worked in fashion here as an outsider. So I happened to then fall in this place of working on projects which had causes that I deeply cared about. And it wasn't, I won't say it wasn't intentional, it was intentional just through me following what I care about, not me stepping back and trying to plot it. So yeah, it was really nice to be working with such a huge brand and a side in which also aligns with something that I also care about in terms of the sustainability of the fashion industry. So yeah, it was a meeting point where a lot of my interests coalesced, and this is it.
And where was this shot?
We shot in Portugal. This is an eco lodge a few hours outside of Lisbon.
And is it natural light mostly, or
yeah,
is it,
all natural light.
Yeah, you can see it's got a really beautiful quality to it. And Steadicam, as we spoke about earlier.
Steadicam was huge. I think we shot most of it on Steady.
Yeah. And who's the DOP?
DOP was Oliver Ford.
Right.
Really, again, old friend of mine, super talented guy. I think we've only worked together once or twice, but it's funny what we were just talking about. Not through any reason. He moved to Paris for a little bit. He's moved back. But yeah, Oliver really enjoyed traveling and working with him on this.
So at the beginning of my career, I used to travel a lot with my directors, and now they all use local crews, unfortunately. So it's
the thing.
Become a lot harder to travel.
It's not what it used to. It's changed a lot in just the last 15, hasn't it?
Yeah, it really has. So let's finish up. Just want to talk a little bit about your future projects. So you're working on a couple of long forms. Both of them are with Steve Lamas?
No, just one with Lamas.
Yeah,
that's a feature film with Film 4. Coming of age, very personal, set in the Midlands. Yeah.
Can't talk too much about that.
I mean, I'm trying to work out. It's very personal. I won't talk too much. I'm usually, it's a coming of age film, very personal.
And then the sci-fi. Do you want to talk a bit about that? Because I've got
Yeah.
some notes on that.
Oh, nice.
So,
I'd love to hear, because it's so funny. I've been developing this for years and it's still moving. I'm actually, actively still developing it. And it's not with anyone, it's not with anybody yet, but that's through a real choice. I don't want to rush it. And I've always loved sci-fi. Always loved it.
What are your favourite sci-fi films?
Films, my favourites would be Children of Men, you know, because it's I love the space of grounded sci-fi, near future.
Yeah.
It's so amazing, you know, those ones where you look back and you're like, oh my god, they predicted it, but actually it's all in plain sight. We don't have to predict. If you look enough in any direction, politically, socially, you can see patterns, you can see where we're heading.
Well, particularly with AI now.
AI,
exactly.
Exactly. Like there's writers who have written all about all of this. So I think my one advice to people, if like you're overwhelmed by what's going on, read sci-fi and you'll realise none of this is new.
Yeah, where we're heading. Yeah,
where we're heading, but also people have already dreamt people's already dreamt and also had nightmares about this. And sci-fi considers both. And that's what storytellers do. So Children of Men, I love. Arrival, love that. Obviously Blade Runner goes without saying. They're the three off the top of my head.
And do you want to talk a little bit about more pirates?
So this project, pirates, is a very big theme, and I read a book in lockdown and it just really reframed my image of pirates that I had in my head, and so much of it resonated. And I think piracy is something inherent to a lot of us. Piracy is about saying, this doesn't work for me, the status quo doesn't serve me, I'm going to make my own rules. And unfortunately that's outside of the status quo, so it might be illegal, it might be frowned upon, it might be shocking because it's so different. But I think I've always lived in that space of being like, I'm quite comfortable making my own rules. And that's sci-fi for me, and that's piracy for me. And so this one project is a series, episodical, and piracy is hugely central theme. And again, not piracy in the way you would think, because piracy spreads to everything. You know, I grew up, we used to pirate music and films. I saw like your Steve Jobs, and he changed industries, being like, you know, forget that, I'm going to do this now, I'm going to do this how I want to do it. So I think I've always been attracted and drawn to people who think like a pirate, in terms of being like, this is all right, but let me make my own rules. If we change that, or if we did this, and they don't wait for permission, they just do it.
It's kind of libertarian sort of values.
Massively. And I think it was only in lockdown when I read this specific book, Be More Pirate, that I was like, oh my gosh, this really resonates with me, one. And two, there's a lot of things and stories and issues, and there's a lot of spaces in our world which I'm keen to explore and ask some big questions. Spaces which, as you said, in AI and the digital, you know, the way the world's moving.
And also blockchain as well. I mean, what's going to be interesting is that nation states are no longer going to be nation states in the way that we're familiar with them. It's going to be down to, I think it's going to be down to certain technologies that change that. And I think one of them, for example, will be cryptocurrency. And I think the way that blockchains, like for example, the ecosystem of Cardano or 100%. Ethereum, they're going to have their own governance structure inside.
100%.
And it's going to just,
And I think with a lot of these things, when you look at them now, each of us might say, you know, cryptocurrency is a great one. We're like, oh, okay, cool. So it's a this or it's a that. In retrospect, it will all make sense. But when you're in it, it's about people's imagination. So you might see this technology and be like, wait a minute, I could use this glasses, this thing where it's designed for one thing, but because of the value in its nature, it can go in so many directions. And for me, that's sci-fi. And crypto, great example where we're going to look back, and nation states, the world will look very different. And at the time when we're there, we'll be like, of course, because this happened and this happened, and this was the natural way to do it. Whereas when you're in it now, there's the fear, there's the this, there's the that. It doesn't matter. People will get creative with it when we need it, and that's nature. we can argue all we want, but it doesn't actually matter. And that space I love. Like, I really love that space of asking big questions, or people who take matters into their own hands. That feels more natural. That's connecting to some laws of nature.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? Like, what is it? The shortest path to...
The water finds the shortest path. Yeah.
We're all water,
yeah.
and we might take some wrong turns here, there, and everywhere, but the main flow will find the shortest path to where we need to be.
Yeah, that's one of the universal physical laws, right?
And I think,
earlier.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's a universal physical law.
Yeah.
So don't get me wrong. In the panic of it, there's loads of reasons to panic. There's loads of. It's all going to be fine.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I think with sci-fi, the one that gets the most attention is dystopian sci-fi.
Yeah.
But you can also get utopian sci-fi.
Yeah.
And the best one is the sci-fi in the middle.
Yeah.
That's got this much hope in amongst this much, confusion. That's sci-fi for me.
Yeah.
So, the time, it's mid-25 now. It's June. I'm sure every month that precedes the release of this, there's going to be new ways to look at this conversation. But despite where we're currently at, I'm very optimistic.
Good. Well, that's a very good place to leave this conversation.
I'm very optimistic.
Well, man, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Honestly, we could talk for days.
And you're going to have to come back when you've done more work, and certainly when you got your little your sci-fi or your personal projects.
All of it.
You should come back and discuss more.
Honestly, I've enjoyed it so much, and the
audience are going to love your explanation, your honesty, and your willingness to really explain the internal mechanism of what it is to be a director and the thought processes you've gone through, and your instinct, and the fact you've actually got that quite early on in your career, and the value that's brought you. I think that's just it's going to be very good for our audience to hear that.
I hope, I hope so, because it doesn't. It's so mystical, our industry, isn't it? There's so many secrets. When I started, you couldn't just Google it. Now it's better, but it's still, and I'm like, it's not like that. It's not a competition when none of us are competing. Yeah. And when you get to that stage, I think it's a good place for you personally. So honestly, and it's been so much fun. I appreciate it.
Well, we'll do this again, man.
We'll do it again.
All right. Thanks a lot, man.